be an indie means we buck a system that doesn't want us. To be a fringe filmmaker means we don't do it for them. We do it for ourselves. To be an outlaw on the fringe means we'll die before we fail. Be an outlaw.
George!
It cut off.
What?
It cut off.
What cut off?
It said it cut off halfway through the word outlaw. You
want me to play it again?
You motherfucker.
That's how it was sent to me.
God damn it.
I only download what you sent me, brother.
I'm going to have to just blame you for a minute for something.
That's a story of my life. But you know what? I'm okay with that now.
Now you are. Jesus, it took long enough.
We had one hell of a weekend last weekend, man. Tell everybody who doesn't know what Romero Pictures, heavy metal Romero Pictures Indie Brigade DEF CON 1. Holy crap.
Yeah, man, it's pretty cool, huh? We did the very first online fan convention, online convention, as near as we can tell. We didn't set out to do it first. That's just kind of how it went. Heavy Metal Magazine came on board with us, and in a very short period of time, as soon as the conventions started getting canceled, I called up Joe like I do, and I said, "Are you ready for your weekly heart attack?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "We're going to do a online convention in 2 weeks." And he said, "Awesome. Is it set up?" And I said, "Absolutely not." So, so the scramble began, and we ended up having 15 dear friends and phenomenally talented folks on day one of DEF CON 1, and that was super fun. Everybody came on for 30 minutes. We did 8+ hours of continuous streaming and interviews, which actually, you know what's funny, Joe? Remember when we were talking about it and you said, "What are you going to do? 8 hours of interviews?" And I said, "Yeah, how hard can it be?" Guess what? It's kind of fucking hard.
Shit.
But it went off without it. I mean, there were a couple of glitches, but nothing outside of what was sort of expected for something that we were bootstrapping up in the face of this whole quarantine thing that's driving everybody nuts right now. And you know what? I think we did a little bit of good. We had 16,000 views over the 2 days, which was not bad considering we only promoted it for about 4.5 days. So I view that as a success. But beyond that, Joe, do you know what else happened as a result? Oh, it's my beautiful wife, Rebecca Romero. Hey.
Yes, I know what happened. Ron saying, "When's the next one?" Come on.
Can I finish the fucking good news, Ron? Jesus. I'm trying to tell you people happy shit. Be happy.
Tell them.
We raised the money for the seed money for the Veterans Compound. So all of the corporate business filings and the IRS filings have been submitted. And by the end of this month, the Veterans Compound will be a fully certified and designated 501c3 organization by the IRS, and we will be a fully fledged and official nonprofit organization. And my heart goes out with thanks to the contributors who reached out to make that possible.
That is freaking awesome.
Right? We will be rolling out more information about the Veterans Compound as we go. It is an amazing program that I've been talking about for some time now, but I'm working on getting the website live, which did not happen today. It was supposed to go live today, but
I did see it, and it is freaking beautiful.
Thank you, man. Well, we can blame George on that one because, the opportunity arose for me to go spend some time with my son during the quarantine. And after sort of going crazy for a long time over the DEF CON, I felt that we both deserved a break. So I did that instead of doing what I should have done. So sorry, everybody. Family first. You know what I'm saying? We will get it done. We will get it live, and there will be announcements all over the damn Indie Brigade about the Veterans Compound and when the site goes live and everything. So stay tuned, stay focused, stay creative, and be part of it. Day 2 of the DEF CON 1. I haven't even gotten to that yet. We did 2 days. 2 days. Two, Joe. Remember?
I was there for all 19 hours. Thank you.
Remember, it was 2. Remember?
Yeah. I was there. Remember, I was the one pulling people up and everything the whole time.
Oh, was that you? That's right. You did such a good job. I thought you hired somebody else.
That was, that was my first day off was today. I literally slept 16 hours, I think.
Good for you. I'm glad. So you're all fresh and ready to go.
Absolutely.
So day 2 of DEF CON 1 was amazing. We had 7 1-hour-long panels. We had some demos. We had an amazing demo about drones from Terry Gerald, the resident drone Jesus for the Romero Pictures Indie Brigade Drone Cav. If you are not familiar with the drone cav, you need to get learned. If you are familiar with the drone cav, you need to spread the word because Terry drops some knowledge in that thing on a regular basis.
Read with this. I'm kidding. I'm busting balls. You can only push him so far before he.
Let's see what else. We've got a lot of comments here popping up, man. I love this. We're people are showing up. They're coming in. They're saying awesome stuff. I'm tired of people saying nice shit about you, though. I mean, I think that everybody stroked your ego enough last during DEF CON 1. Like, it should be back to kind of abusing you. So, we can't let them get too comfortable.
Never happened.
So it went great. We had a phenomenal 1-hour demo from Joe Castro. How cool was that? He literally made a zombie from one of my dad's movies.
In an hour.
In under an hour, actually. Right? And then we had a Texas Chainsaw panel. We had a Blair Witch panel. I can't even remember them all. Jeez, it was such a whirlwind. Dino, just stopping in to tell you guys are made. Thank you, Dino. So are you, buddy. I'm fucking jealous of you on that Harley out there. Peter, how are you doing, brother? Thank you for all the continued love and support and helping us spread the word about the brigade. We are getting bigger. We are getting stronger. We are becoming a force to be reckoned with. And if y'all didn't notice the new opening for the show with that boom heavy metal logo, boom, that one. But the animated one, man, the strategic partnership right now between Romero Pictures Indie Brigade, and Heavy Metal Magazine is ridiculous. Matt Medney, the new CEO of Heavy Metal Magazine, is doing some insanely awesome shit with heavy metal. And we are so happy and proud to be a part of that. In fact, Matt is going to be coming on tonight. That's hence the special activities episode. Matt and I have something kind of special planned for everybody. We are going to be doing some live concepting and things like that. So Matt and I have landed on sort of an outline of what we're going to do. And then that's all I'm going to tell you for now. You're going to have to stick around to the end of the show. But trust me, it's something that not a lot of people who watch the Indie Brigade get the inside track on when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's going to be like sitting in a meeting, a very cool meeting. So hope everybody sticks around. Why are you interrupting me? What?
I was done with you. I wanted to read some more comments. I wanted you to read more comments.
Feedback and questions for the drone cab. Send me more. Terry Gerald is awesome at this, everybody. If you've got drone questions, if you're sitting out there wondering what to do with your drone, just call the drone Jesus. Just send him a message, reach out to him. We are still behind the 8 ball on getting some new things on the website, getting some new mentors in there, things like that. But we are working on it, I promise. Great job and hard work for the Veterans Compound. Thank you, Susie. Happy that you're here.
Oh, this is a great one. I swear, I'm not paying these people.
That's Photoshop. Somebody Photoshopped that, and and then hacked in. I don't. Thank you, brother. It's good to hear from you, man. Keep at it, Brett. Yo, Holly, good to see you. Scott. Oh, sorry. Scott said sup, Joe.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry.
I didn't even get a hello, but whatever. Oh, there it is. He did say hello. What up, Scott? Scott, I actually think I saw a message come in from you, and I will reply to you. It will probably be this weekend. It has been a absolutely insane week. There's some big news dropping next week. Coming from Romero Pictures, Indie Brigade, and Heavy Metal. But I am not going to tell anybody what it is. So that is actually something that I'm just going to tease you all about because I have no intention of spoiling it. Thomas Churchill, we got to get him added in. He's one of the ones we got to get added in before that can happen. We are working on it. David Madison, love you, brother. Happy you're here. Very honored that you were part of DEF CON. You really jumped in and helped out with a lot, and everybody that you helped bring to the DEF CON 1. I mean, what an amazing event we pulled off, and literally the very first online convention we organized it in 5.5 days, promoted it over like 4.5 days, and pulled it off, and it did everything we hoped it would do. But I think the most important thing that it did for me was it absolutely distracted me from what the hell is going on out in the world, and I think it was a much needed distraction for a lot of us, because so often all of us creatives, we indies, we creatives, we get stuck in our own head about shit, and we let we get in our own way. And sometimes when things happen like what's going on now, it's hard because I know a lot of artists I deal with have chronic anxiety, have a lot of stuff that just rattles around all the time. And a lot of veterans that I know are struggling with, forms of PTSD. And this type of situation can definitely make it a lot harder to be creative, let alone stay creative. So I think that probably the best thing we did was help people maybe take their mind off it for a little bit and keep creating. What's Jack saying? Maybe next year or DEF CON 2, I can help host with Joe.
I'd rather be behind the scenes for the most part, thank you, and yell at people when they're doing stuff wrong.
Yeah, that's basically what Joe does.
Mr. Berryman's here.
Oh, great. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else. We need to just touch on a couple of other housekeeping things, right? Or should we? How do you want to
do whatever you want?
Let's see. You can still get your Scare Tactical merch. Look at that. Okay, here we go. Avail TV.
You're throwing me off, man. Which one?
Let's go. We'll stick with Scare Tactical. Let's see. Scare Tactical is a brand new line of clothing offered at romeropictures.com. A portion of all proceeds from every Scare Tactical purchase goes toward the Veterans Compound. So even just because we got our seed money and we have our filings in does not mean that we no longer need any money. We're a nonprofit. So we will be a nonprofit as soon as all of the T's get dotted and the I's get crossed over at the IRS. So buy some swag, go to romeropictures.com, buy some Scare Tactical shit, help us launch this thing classy, help us launch this thing right, and help us help veterans. It'll make you feel good. Promise. Avail TV, Romero Pictures Indie Brigade is now available on Avail TV, which is available for download on Roku, Fire TV, Apple TV, and Apple TV Plus. It's pretty cool. We've got our own channel on there, Romero Pictures Indie Brigade. We've got I think that they are up to season 2, episode 6 on there. So we're working on just getting the rest of the episodes all up and running. So you'll be able to watch Joe's beautiful face on your TV. Joe, the king of kicking people off camera, even though
there was a method to my madness. She was advertising her IMDb page, her YouTube channel. She was getting more airtime than us.
Let's see what else. We are available across audio streams of our shows are available everywhere. They're available on iHeartRADIO, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora, TuneIn, RadioPublic, and Breaker.
Well, I got to that with everything right now. With the past 2 weeks, been slacking a little, so they're not totally up to date. We may be 1 or 2 episodes behind. Yeah, exactly.
So let's see. I think that's it. Beyond all of that, if you don't want to help veterans,
you can help us out by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Go to our Facebook page, hit like, subscribe. Go to our YouTube, like, subscribe. Instagram, Twitter, please. I'm going to bring Michael up now because nobody wants to see this. They want to see him. So if you would kindly introduce the man.
Mr. Michael Berryman, how are you, sir?
Doing very well. Good evening.
Good evening, man. How is life? What is going on? You're staying safe. You're staying healthy.
We're staying at home. We're going to pretty much only go out if we actually need something specific. We picked up a bunch of N95 masks, so we're our area in Florida, our county, Marion County, we're surrounded by the other counties, and they all have a higher rate of infection. So we're just playing it smart. Don't go out without gloves or a mask, and wipe things down and do the usual. So I feel good about that. Now we have projects at home. So you were talking earlier about the process of an indie filmmaker, and how can you be creative when times are kind of shitty? Well, I say we use the escape of our art to get to be introverted and draw the audience in to a storyline, and then you come out the other side and having had an experience. So it could be it really comes down to a question of what do you want to say. So for indie makers, I've done a lot of indie films, and one of the biggest issues I've ever seen was the lack of coordination and communication, especially communication between who is available that day, because most of the people that work on our shorts are friends, volunteers, whatever. And I've had situations where the director didn't have a shot list or setups organized enough to where he could move through the day quickly. And the makeup artist that was doing special effects makeup said, "Well, I got to go home. My babysitter is sleeping," and they grabbed their toys and left. So I'd like to start with anecdotes about how do you actually get something in the can. These days we have so many technical advances via computers, fancy smartphones, etc. So have you ever run across an indie shoot that was maybe ill prepared or didn't get the day's work done?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Really?
I mean,
Tell me more.
Who hasn't, right? But I mean, here's the thing, and you've already dropped some gems in there that I'd like to kind of latch onto. The idea of basically a process is what you're talking about. You're talking about the fact that the reason that $100 million films and $20 million films and $5 million films operate smoothly is because of a process that was set forth a very long time ago. It's because of a chain of command, a process of filmmaking, and an approach to organizing a very disorganized creative beast. It's like herding cats.
Yes. Everybody has a thin skin at one point or another during the production, and a good producer, a good line producer or executive producer, can really help the director get the shots they need, because sometimes the director is so locked into the creative process, and a lot of times they've written the script. I've seen that just go befuddled into a complete loss as to where I've had them come up to me and go, "Michael, what do I do about?" I could name some names; they're very famous, but I won't. What do I do? How do I get these people to work together? And you have to be creative. But I find that certain things help the most, and that is to tell a story around maybe some wine, beer, and food. And if you can get your crew, your principal players, do a read through, and sit down and just have dinner, get to know one another a little bit. Do you get that that family vibe going? And that really helps a lot, because people will. How can I put it? They will give information. They will give suggestions. Well, I know how we can do this, and you get basically you have to get your day's work done, and communication is key. Like sometimes you have to wear many hats. I've seen producers and directors have to, I'll sew that button back on. Give me that. I'll hold the steady cam. So it's what they call guerrilla filmmaking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For me, what I find when I direct, I find that part of me is sort of like the head of the family. Part of me is a general. I think somebody put a comment up about a captain being able to steer ships through stormy weather. That's Damon. He's a good friend of the brigade, and he's right. It's part general, part family, sort of, head of the table. But then there's the psychotherapist part, right? Because when it comes to your talent, a lot of times, actors need to find something in their past or in their personal frame of reference in order to draw on that to get a performance. And, that's not something, no matter what anybody thinks, that's not something, correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it seems like no matter what anybody thinks, that's not something that a lot of people can easily turn on and off. You're basically exposing this raw nerve every time you do it on some level. And to be able to, for anybody to expect that you should be able to just go out there and turn it on and turn it off like hot and cold running water, is not only arrogant, it's dangerous to your production.
We call those method actors.
Yeah.
I actually had somebody ask me to kick him in the head, literally kick him in the head, because he didn't know how to move. He didn't know what the frame was, and he didn't know how to. I'm supposed to kick him in the head anyway, but there's ways to do it where you don't get kicked in the head. And he was, one of the leads who was Hills Have Eyes too, and he's going, well, I really want to be, and I could hear him in his head going, I really want to be a team player. We need this shot. I get kicked in the head. And he just looked at me, and Wes Craven was getting the shot set up. He goes, Michael, I have a real thick skull. Go ahead and just kick me. And I said, I would love to, but we might need you for the next shot. He goes, oh, yeah, okay. Well, and I just gave him an idea real quick. I just said, look, I bring my foot up against the side of your head, and my knee is bent. So as soon as you feel the foot touch your face, just give it some contact. Now you're in contact, and then all I have to do is straighten my knee, and then you go with it. And I had Wes hold his hands up so we could see so he could get an idea of where the frame was, So we get him all, because he didn't know what it was like when you're setting up a shot. Why do I have to hit my mark? What's the difference between this and this? Well, it's distracting. Creepy eyes, intelligent eyes. All the little nuances, and we got it in one take.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, but that's a story of collaboration. I mean, look, it sounds like you worked with somebody, and I'm not going to ask you who it was because we don't do that here at the Brigade. But
right.
It sounds like you worked with somebody who either was less experienced than you or very.
He was new. It was his first feature film.
Yeah,
and he went on to do TV after that, and camera loved him, and it was fun to work with, and I remember. Having to learn things for the first time, and if it's a technical, mechanical aspect, dealing with camera angles and that kind of stuff, that's really a lot. That's a lot of fun for me. It's kind of scientific, mathematical. You're placing yourself in the frame, which becomes very creative because there's the primary objects in your frame, and just like in a fine work of art, you have your negative space, which creates shapes, and those can vary, with lighting, texture, and placement and angles. You can have the images and objects and spaces in between, especially the negative space they call that. They can create how can I say it? Movement, mood, all those little things that enhance. And the audience, when they see a short little indie film, they go, wow, I get it. Okay, that's all working out. But why is one better than the other? Why is one more enjoyable? Why is it more engaging? And you really want it to be engaging. So it's those little nuances that make a very, very big difference. If I have the collar up on one side, what does that mean as the character? If they're both up, I'm trying to hide. If it's down, I'm kind of casual. Those are just little fun things to scribble about. You're like a sketch artist, and then you're comparing. Especially this happens during rehearsals, and again, I think that's another point that is critical for discussing indie films. You got a tight, short schedule. Everybody's working in the groove. We're all clicking. We're meshing like some a nice well-oiled machine, and you can get those nuances right in the moment to moment when everybody's on the same page. And then you have stuff that's like we call a gem, or a piece of magic happens, and that's always enjoyable. You never forget those moments.
Well, no, you don't. And you know what? I want to go back to when you were talking about cinematography, because there's something very important that I speak about a lot to the Brigade and viewers and members of the Brigade, and that's visual vocabulary and texture.
Oh, I love it.
Right. So, what do those terms mean to you as an actor with your experience, and as a cinematographer, and as somebody with your experience all around a film set? What do those two terms, let's take them one at a time. What does visual vocabulary mean to you? Because a lot of people, when I say that, kind of look at me like, well, I've never heard that term before. So I try to explain it to them, and I would love to know what you take away from that.
Well, what it means to me is there's certain elements, and it would be, first of all, your framing. You have a rectangle or a square or whatever your aspect ratio is, and then where you place your objects. And this is separate from the storyline. This is separate from the emotion of the performance. These are elements that are more they're structural, but they're artistic building blocks that you put in the playpen, so to speak. And what I like to see before we're getting ready for a read through or a rehearsal, I like to kind of meander through the set, or just sit my chair on the set. I spend most of my time on the set as possible, and just watch the people address the set. The choices they make for just the props, for instance, and the colors and those textures, that all creates a mood. It's more than just a box. It's not just a shoe box. It's a diorama, so to speak. So I pick up from not only their enthusiasm, but every aspect when they're making decisions where you go, wow, that shows some sensibilities. Because you could have objects, let's just say props on your dressing set, and they create various things like curtains, for instance, or a lampshade, a chair. Is a chair, is it made out of wood, or is it metal? Is it shiny? Is it slick? Or is it upholstered? All of these textures are, I believe, as far as the set, the area where we're going to do the creative visual, is huge. So, but now when you're on a budget, I would say those are artistic elements come about from picking the right house, the right room, the right neighborhood, the right car, if it's if you got somebody in a car. So that's that side of it. The other side is what was the second half?
Well, visual vocabulary and texture.
Visual, okay, and texture would be lighting, the colors. And it's not just the lighting from the lamps and the visual for the camera to see objects. It's also the where you have your lighting. Like you can have limb darkness lighting, which means I want to be lit from the outside. You can barely see my face and torso, but you'll see a line, an outline, almost like a coloring book before you put the color in. Well, the black line is actually your lighting. Having your actors find the light is another huge aspect. It seems like a real simple thing to say, we'll find the light. Well,
no, it's hard. It's actually, it's not easy.
No, it's not, especially when you're getting into close-ups, or if you have, let's say you have a medium shot, two people, chest to top of head, and they're in the frame. Well, you still have your elements of the frame itself and the edges, and what's the background negative spaces of those. That all creates the tension and movement of your characters. But then you have your lighting, and sometimes the lighting is very specific, just to the eyes, for instance, or just to a certain part of the face. And the other key thing that you're not aware of until you deal with it is pulling focus. Now, if I'm stationary and I'm right here, and then the camera goes from me, and then you do a reversal on the other person, well, that's pretty simple and straightforward. I might be well lit like I am now, and then when we do the reversal, you could have a different lighting behind you. But when it comes down to movement and walking into and out of lit areas, when you're on a real small beam of light, for instance, certain things happen. You also have the aspect of putting various gels and silks over your lights. So it's fun to practice and play with that, even if it's not your department. For a director and line producer, I recommend that you go through they should all go to every lighting rehearsal, set dressing rehearsal, things of that nature. And maybe even go shopping or go to the garage where your nerdy prop master has saved stuff since, even got the stuff that their parents threw out when they went to college,
Yeah, absolutely. And
we're playing, we're having fun, we're creating something.
Yeah, and what I like to do when I'm on the set is I like to really, you have to think about lens choice. And if you're a filmmaker and a director, even if you've got somebody shooting, a lot of indie filmmakers will do their own shooters and that whole thing. But you always get to a point where you eventually bring on a cinematographer, and then you realize how much easier your life is once you have a cinematographer. But before you do that, you should really understand. You should understand the language of the lenses too, because different lenses provide different reads on all the lighting and texture you were just talking about. For instance, Cronenberg shoots all of his close-ups on a 27 millimeter lens because it creates this crazy dynamic frame. And when I heard that and I looked at it and I started looking at it, I got married to that for a lot of years in my own work. And I started, I would have a crew I worked with, and I would tell them all the time, okay, bring me the Cronenberg, you know what I mean? And they would know that was the 27 millimeter lens, because there's something about doing a close-up with a super wide angle lens that not only interprets the dynamics of the entire frame, but it changes the depth of field and the depth of focus, and it really creates this sort of living texture around your subject. And lens choice is super important, right? I mean, or I thought you did that on purpose.
Almost.
When you were talking about lighting.
How's that? I did do that. I've got a rheostat slide on the floor, and I was using my foot. I like what you just said. It's very true. I love, I call it an intimate lens, a 27, 28. I also like a prime lens, depending on the aspect ratio, of course. A variable. I've seen so many cool toys when they bring the boxes. I've seen Panavision boxes and people's Reds or whatever. But when they start pulling lenses out and you see something like maybe a variable zoom lens that's also a wide angle, like from a I'll just pick a number, 17 to 32, something in that range. Whoa, you can have a lot of fun with that. And the way those intimate shots that you were describing, it becomes almost anthropomorphic, and it brings the audience really into the atmosphere of almost stepping into the space that that your subject, your actor, is in at that moment. It's just, it's an artistic. It's an artistic lens. It's not you wouldn't shoot a commercial with it.
No, but what you do is when you're, these are the kind of decisions that filmmakers need to put into planning for their shoot, because you know, as a filmmaker, as a director, you know who you've cast in your film, you know the script because you've probably read it 2,000 times by now, and if you haven't, then you shouldn't be making a movie. You know all of these things, and you know all of this stuff, and so by this point, you've had read-throughs. If you're doing it even half right, you've had read-throughs with your cast, and you understand what your talent is going to bring to the scenes and to the characters. And so when you have, to use your term, the intimate lenses, and you shoot a close-up, or like in History of Violence, which is a great example of the 27 millimeter Cronenberg, is a 27 mil on everybody in their close-ups around the kitchen table when they're sitting there, and it creates this moment around each actor. And so when the actors now bring what they've worked hard to develop into that frame with that lens and the lighting and all of that stuff, what you've now created is you've created an emotion.
That's true. It's an exposure. It's funny because that's a term that you use in photography, exposure. But for the artist, the actor, the performer, bringing the character to life is those words really mean something, because you're putting energy and life into this character. It's not so much that you're pushing a button that's got batteries and the character comes to life. You breathe breath into it. People sitting around the table, for instance, having a conversation, and like 12 Angry Men, for instance. There's an example. That's not an indie film, but each person has a uniqueness to them, which is really kind of fun. If you have a well-diverse cast, like the original Gunfight at OK Corral or something, every gunslinger was unique. And when I was a kid and I saw it, I was going like, wow, I want to be that guy. Then the next one would show, no, he's even cooler, Right. But and I'm saying this before they even do anything. Just the way they're dressed, the way they walk, their demeanor, their presence. Right. So we're all crayons, and if you pick your crayons correctly and then do your pre-production, I always harp on this pre-production, and as many as your primary people that can be at every production meeting really helps you get a better result at the end. It becomes a family, and it should. And when you're over, when you're done with it, you're doing the rushes and you go to post-production. But it should always, well, I'll just say, may you always leave the end of a shoot when you have the martini shot, where you kind of, not sad, but you kind of go, wow, I would like to do this again. And I've had many times when we did a shot, and I know they're going to print. They said, they printed at least 2. And I go, well, do we have a minute? I've got something more. I just thought of this. What do you think? And sometimes those last minute suggestions are spot on. Yeah. And they just pop out of nowhere.
Well, absolutely. And you never know where they're going to come from. And that's, what I talk about a lot here in the Brigade as well, is that, it is truly collaborative. And if you've done your job right, and if you've done your pre-production right, then you have everybody around you who has the greater good of the project itself in mind. And what that means is, if you and your crew have done your job right, nobody will ever notice, because
isn't that funny?
It all comes together so perfectly and works to create a character with the talent that you're working with. Yeah. And when all of that's on screen and everything just fits and works, the first time I ever do it as a filmmaker, it changes the way you look at everything you will do for the rest of your life. The first time you ever really truly nail it, you will strive to nail it like that every time for the rest of your life and better. And so it's one of those things that I think it's so important that I just drive these points home. And it means the world to me that you're on here talking about this stuff with me tonight, Michael, because, we've known a lot of the same people for a long time, but we've recently become friends and found out that we're brothers. And that's very cool. And what's important to me is the family aspect of it, the positivity of it, because you really are out there with people that especially location based. Most indie stuff is
especially
location based.
location. Yeah.
When you're out there in the middle of nowhere with a generator that's run out of gas, and,
That's never,
and the pizza from second but you just need what you need to get the movie done. You want people around you who are doing this, who are not only going to understand what you're doing, but why you're doing it, from a technical reason, but also from an internal reason, because you need people to rally around you, who believe in you and believe in what you're trying to do. And the best way to do that is to believe that everybody that you've brought onto your film is there for the right reasons and there to do the best for the film, not for you as a person.
right.
And at the end of the day, everything that happens behind the camera is all designed to help your talent deliver the character that you and your talent work hard to create.
It's true.
So sorry, I
went on. Well, I was just thinking of you want a sober gopher. What I mean by that is we all know what a gopher is.
Yeah.
But if you're, and these days, I think to be a gopher, you have so much going for you, which is a Yelp, Google, a computer in your phone. Like, oh my God, I need a hula hoop for this scene. Where in the hell can I find that? I mean, whatever it is, I've seen people go on rescue missions just at the last second. You're out in the middle of bumfuck, and they come back and go, wow, where'd you find that? Oh, there's an Army Navy surplus store or whatever. But if you can, again, pre-production. If you're going to go out in Yucca Valley or some remote place, you should definitely go there and get to know some of the locals that you might be doing business with, for supplies, lunch, any and all of those things. And it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like being in the Boy Scouts, going out on a jamboree or something. It's always an adventure. Every location shoot has always been an adventure. I've been blessed. I've been able to go to the Amazon and Italy and other, remote places, and there's a lot of rewards and not beyond the making of your film and telling of your story, and hopefully you get the emotional content that's necessary. You get the point across. And there's also secondary influences and little gems and little gifts you get to personally keep with you. And that could be a location in a particular time of the year. Like I got to film one time in the desert right after the rains in the early spring. And it was in bloom. It was remarkable. You find a little hideaway someplace for a vacation. You run across some how can I put it, eccentric, in the off the highway.
Yeah.
You never know. So there's other things to help you get your day that have nothing to do with the production that actually become fond memories. It's a trip, so it's an extended experience beyond just the storytelling. But if you want to get it in the can, follow George's advice. But one of my favorite things that people forget about is your score.
Oh yeah,
that can make or break you.
We could do a whole show on that, and in fact, I think that we probably should, because one thing that people need to understand is, yes, everybody knows, and people say stuff. Well, if your sound is shit or whatever, but if that's
live sound, please articulate. You got to get good live sound. ADR doesn't fix everything.
But if so many people know that you need good sound, then there should be better sound out there. So.
They've got really good new equipment these days that make it easier. Yeah,
you get great sound. If you all saw the rig I'm running this microphone through, it's a great microphone that I've had for years, but I'm running it through like this rig of gear that's, I don't know, 10 years old, and it works. and we get good sound out of it. So
Yeah, it's a good solid. There's no overmodulation.
Yeah, I mean, and
it's 5.9.
it's because I go back to the days of analog, and if you understand the analog of everything, then you can view the digital advantages as just that, they're advantages.
Yeah.
So, well, Michael, listen, we are just about out of time here, but I can't tell you how nice it is to talk with you about this stuff. I hope you'll come back on a regular and continue to drop some knowledge with our audience here.
Love to do it. It's always good to learn a new trick here and there. So everybody, be safe. Do what we're supposed to do. We'll get through this. In the meantime, while you're hanging out at home, write that screenplay. Get it done.
Excellent words of advice from Mr. Michael Berryman. Thank you so much, sir.
Peace out.
Stay safe. Stay healthy.
What a wealth of knowledge. Holy cow. Did you see all the comments and questions? If we would have touched on them all, we would have had a 3-hour show.
Yeah, it was one of those where I could not, they were coming in so rapid fire. I couldn't even pay attention to them because
I bring them up and interrupt, and I know it's going to be distracting. So it's just like,
well, yeah. And, when you're lucky enough to be able to have these conversations with somebody like Michael, you just go with it. I mean, that guy's forgotten more about filmmaking than a lot of people in the brigade, including myself, will ever learn. And, it's a privilege to get to speak to somebody like him about this kind of stuff. And it does my heart a lot of good to see the response that people were having. So I can't wait till he takes a scroll through there and sees that for himself.
I'm glad you got your glasses back on. Well, you're not going to read it?
No, I can't read that. All right. Can we all agree Joe Ridgely is the sex icon of Romero Pictures? Maybe if he was in a different pose.
Oh, you're going to inflate his head. No, not really. Can't get any bigger than it already is. Look at his side.
Ain't that the truth?
Oh, that's awesome.
Boom. Lance says boom. I'm not sure what that boom is for, but I'll take any. I'll take it whenever Lance wants to drop.
Well, I know Lance has something to do with a zoom and a. Never mind. People who know Lance would understand.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people know Lance. If you don't know Lance and Samantha Wagner host the Wagner Wiles on Romero Pictures Indie Brigade Network. Vogue Joe, Vogue it. We've got a bunch of other stuff. Do you want to throw those logos up real quick? Do you have those?
Wow,
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt your special
dance. I'm trying to dance here, trying to entertain, but whatever. I will. Yes, absolutely.
Look at this. We still have to add End of the Night. Hopefully David is understanding because he has witnessed the flurry of activity and knows that I'm not slacking. I just have to get it.
Slacking.
Anyway, for those of you that don't know, Mr. David Madison has a show that comes on 11 o'clock tonight called The End of the Night. It is the newest addition to the Indie Brigade podcast network, and I still have to add it to the other graphic tonight. He's got a phenomenal show lined up for you. Don't worry, it's not a COVID cough. Yet I did have to venture out into the world the other day. So now it's like every time I go out, the doomsday clock starts again in my head. Like I had to run to the store for some hamburger meat. Oh, now I got to wait another 14 days. Anyway, what else we got? Bring that graphic up again real quick. Do you mind? Thank you. We've got our show, The Indie Brigade. This is the Romero Pictures Indie Brigade with me, your host, George C. Romero, and my ever faithful and present producer extraordinaire, Joe Ridgely. We've got the drone cap, which I touched on a little bit tonight, that is run and operated by Mr. Terry Gerald. He constantly drops amazing drone knowledge on you. If you like what you learn here at the Indie Brigade, tune in, check him out. You will learn loads. Nasty Nation with Chuck Nasty, otherwise known as Chuck Daniels from the Bastard Sons of the Judas Goat, which incidentally does all of the music that you hear underneath all of the Romero Pictures Indie Brigade stuff, with the exception of the Wagner Wiles theme song, which is done by a gentleman named Chris Attella. Then we've got the Wagner Wiles. I've just talked about that. Then we've got the Devil is into Detail, which is a phenomenal blog about creativity written by our own Ian Steyer, the gentleman responsible for the look and feel of the new Romero Pictures Indie Brigade branding and logos and look and feel of everything. So I think I got it all. If you don't know about the Indie Brigade, go to romeropictures.com and check it out. If you like what you hear, you can buy some merch in our store. You can go to our Buy Me a Coffee. And there you go. That's about it. There's all this stuff. I missed a whole conversation in the private chat, so I don't know if I should catch up or should read it later.
Well, now I'm not going to have the only freaking beanie now. Jack's going to have one also.
He got in under the wire. Like, do you realize I almost pulled all that LE shit off the site today?
The limited edition stuff was supposed to come down today.
Like, I just, it's one of those things where it's on my list of shit to do. And so the more shit that I have to do, the longer that stuff ends up staying on the site. So
there is just so much love for the network that's going on here. Terry, Chuck, I'm telling you,
the Indie Brigade is awesome. We have like the best and most engaging audience out of any podcast network I've seen. I love everybody who's involved. We've got collaborations going on in our secret private Facebook group. I like to say that every once in a while. Richard Grieco, how's it going, brother?
Glad to see you in here.
Yep, we've got some more stuff to talk about with Mr. Grieco here pretty soon too. Let's see. You got somebody who wants to be your bestie, Joe? Libby, what's going on?
Jack, I don't know if I should be afraid now, man.
Jack's a veteran. Very good dude. Very, very good dude.
Yeah, but that like starts out as a horror movie, veteran, good dude.
Hey, there's Thomas Churchill right there.
Damn, and I just get.
Oh, now you know what it feels like.
I do not know what it feels like. Hey, look, it's Thomas Churchill right there. Hey. And now I'm going to get the cold shoulder. Ah, you dick. And that is why everybody loves the Indie Brigade.
Yeah, well, I hope that's why. I mean, look, we rook.
We rook is right.
Pull that up again. Indie Brigade rooks. I think that's
that's awesome.
Oh man, Grieco, you're one of my best friends on earth. I am so happy that you're here, part of it. We know what you meant, Thomas. We speak Churchill.
And Jack, yes, I do. Thank you very much, man. Oh, wait, what's Lauren saying? Joe, how much did you pay Jack for all the love? Well, it hasn't been cast yet. Come on. But I mean,
so I want to talk about something else. If anybody out there,
Samantha first, the family,
Samantha, we love you to death. We're so happy and proud that you and Lance are in this Brigade family. If anybody out there knows how to set up Xbox leagues or whatever the fuck you call them, I don't know. Is it like a regular thing, right? I want to set up Indie Brigade, unofficial Indie Brigade Xbox thing for Call of Duty for the new Modern Warfare. So if anybody knows how to do all that shit so a bunch of people in the brigade can get in on something like that, hit me up and teach me how to do it, or we'll figure it out.
And I know where you're going with that, so that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's something else I want to do. As usual, y'all don't know necessarily my reasons for it yet, but you will when the time is right. So we need to see if this is something that works.
It'll definitely be worth your while.
Look at Grieco. Yes. So, yeah, buddy.
All right, so we have your next guest on whenever you're ready.
Perfect.
We don't want to keep
I was looking at the private chat and I saw something that said his computer broke, and I figured you were. So okay, so he's back. We're good, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Matt Medney, CEO of Heavy Metal Magazine.
Now.
What's up, man?
What's up, brother?
Dude, I was literally taking the link from YouTube to send it to my managing editor Ricardo, who's definitely on right now. Shout out Ricardo, savage, and my best friend Ilya Gluskin out of Boston, also savage. Shout out. And for whatever reason, when I sent them the link, it started playing it without a portal, and then I could not stop it playing while it was looping into being behind the scenes, and it crashed my computer. So I had to reset everything to get back, to shut it all down.
Dude, fucking Indie Brigade wrecking computers since 2020.
Is that not the truth?
Oh, love it. How you guys doing tonight?
Good, brother. How are you doing, man?
Another day in paradise.
What's it like out there right now? Is it crazy out there?
It's getting pretty crazy, I would say. The atmosphere is definitely, I mean, and I tracked this from day one. I think we're on like day 22 or something, and from day one I said 14 days were good. You'll get some restlessness, you'll get some people who are just disgruntled, but habits, like psychologically, habits take 21 days.
Yep.
Right? And you get the real withdrawal in that third week, in that 15 to 21. And I always said that if we got to that sort of realm, there's going to be some serious craziness.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see that. I mean, my dad lives in Manhattan, and his like lobby area was like raided yesterday for like packages. And like pops. Yeah, dude, craziness.
We know somebody who works at a hospital in Lexington. They told us that somebody just like ran in and ripped a fucking thing of hand sanitizer off the wall and ran out, you know, like literally looting hospitals for hand sanitizer. I mean, I can't even, it's fucking crazy what's happening right now.
And I had to have sent you this meme like a week ago, and we probably talked about it on the Heavy Metal Instagram, and probably even last week, because I still can't fucking get over this shit, which is, in all of the post-apocalyptic dystopian stories I've written, I know you've written, I never in a million years would have thought toilet paper and hand sanitizer would be the items that people were running after. Like not to get graphic, but there are so many ways to wipe your ass with not toilet paper. You need knives. Why are people buying propane? What is wrong? I do not. It baffles me every day.
Dude, I think I just in true nature, just listening to you talk, I think I just came up with another crazy niche, right? We just take alternatives to toilet paper and market them under the brand name, not toilet paper.
Look, my flamethrower is called Not a Flamethrower.
Yeah, did you get that from, is that the Elon Musk one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted one of those. I didn't get it.
Great. No, the main investor owner of Heavy Metal bought it for me as a Christmas gift, saying I'm really good at putting out fires, so I should start one.
Well, listen, hey, before we kind of get rolling here, for a lot of people who don't know, you know, we introduce you as the CEO of Heavy Metal Magazine, and that, because that's who you are. But that's not all that you are. And, you know, maybe I was thinking you could give the Brigade a little bit of background on yourself outside of being the CEO of our new partner, Heavy Metal Magazine, which is the fucking coolest marriage of two brands in the history of anything. So, but maybe just let everybody know a little bit about you and your background, because you offer, what people need to realize is that the benefits of Matt being personally involved with the Brigade on a regular, there's a lot of knowledge that this motherfucker's going to drop. So,
I always say I'm a writer first and a executive second. I think that's always a key thing for me. So I'm always looking at things from the point of view of a creator. I started hero projects with my partners, Johnny Handler, Pete Russo, and Morgan Rosenblum 5 years ago. And we do custom comics for the music industry. So I've done stuff for Meek Mill and Chance the Rapper and 21 Savage and all these great rappers through our partner Rolling Loud, which is the #1 hip hop music festival, and through that I've written about 24 different comic books I've been published by these guys, and I'm a novelist and have my first novel that comes out this November in bookstores nationwide if they're open again. And I spent 10 years traveling the world as a tour and production manager, blowing up stages with fireworks, fire, and confetti across 45 countries and 352 shows.
Boom. So you've all been educated now. Beyond the Heavy Metal Romero Pictures partnership and Matt and I freaking out about everything that we're working on, and every time we talk, getting more and more excited about expanding and growing all this stuff. Matt has a lot of knowledge to drop on the Brigade. So one of the things we're talking about is a regular segment between the two of us. We're still working out the details on kind of how that's gonna go. I have a feeling it's never gonna be, you and I could sit down and be like, well, let's talk about this one week and this and that, but it's never gonna go like that. So I think it's just gonna be like just you and me rapping on a regular about some shit, because that seems to go pretty well. Let's see. Matt Medney, mic drop.
No, I was texting Joe backstage because I had my whiskey in my hand, and I thought he gave me a look, and I was like, "Oh shit, am I not allowed to drink this on air?"
Of course.
No, something dropped in the background over by my bar, and I'm just thinking either a kid is in my bar or the cat. So it had nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. No, you were. Joe drinks on the show.
Oh, does he? I feel like Joe drinks all the time.
Yeah.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why I hold control of the show, and I can take whoever no.
Well, what if you just like knock me out for a second there? I feel like that would be a very Joe thing to do.
Yeah.
Would I ever do anything like that? It's not in my nature. George, tell him it's not in my nature.
It's not in his nature.
Every interaction makes me understand BlameJoe so much more.
Right? It's epic. Like, no matter what we do with heavy metal, no matter what we do with Romero Pictures, no matter what we do with both brands, like the potential for the BlameJoe message is global. Like, it's potentially one of the biggest messages in the history of branding messages.
It's so good. But I want to talk. I was thinking, I was thinking this afternoon as we were kind of figuring out what if we should talk about tonight, and we were talking about on the heavy metal podcast, heavy metal YouTube, Instagram feed this week. Is we were talking about like what makes a great story, right? And I think there, Samantha already learned by Matt. but like I think that your fans specifically, and the Indie Brigade really probably gain a lot from kind of that thread, as just kind of like to throw it out there and see where it goes, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just keep coming back to this idea of how are we living in a time where toilet paper is what is missing from a convenience store, a grocery store. And it got me thinking about story in general. And I was like, we always think that we're putting ourselves in the shoes of the situation that we're going to be in. But the reality is, until that situation actually occurs, we're just giving our best guess, like kind of vision from our personal history and what we've read as to what that situation might be like. But the reality is, we don't really know. But all good stories feel convincing because the writer, director, people involved believe it. Right. So like I kind of like long-winded way of saying, like, I think what's really important when you're crafting your stories is not always necessarily hammering in the realisticness of it, as much of that is important, but more the authenticity of the message.
Right. Absolutely. Well, the thing about that to me, is if you can be as true to your story, and this goes back to my process. Authenticity goes back to being true to your own story. When you come up with a story as a writer, it's your story. It is not anybody else's, and no matter how many of your friends you talk to about it, or no matter how many boardrooms you pitch it in where you're told, you know what, we love it, but what if you made it a dancing comedy, right? Like, none of that is your story. All of that is outside forces that work to change your story. And I think that the authenticity that you're talking about it's so delicate and fragile, especially in newer writers and newer artists, because as you kind of test your story out, we all do it. Hey man, I was thinking about writing a story about a toaster that talks to a car. Right. Like, I'm going to say that to you and you're going to say that's a fucking stupid idea. And I'm going to say, okay, I respect your opinion. Right. But, we do that and we have this sort of authentic story that then, that shell is fragile and needs to be protected by you. And the way that I do that is by trusting my inner creative. And I feel like you do the same thing. So, what does that mean to you? Like, how do you trust your own inner creative to kind of fend off the bullets and the attacks on your authenticity of your story?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. I think what I do and what I know you do is you have to be honest with yourself, right? And it's not like this age-old saying, "Oh, I hate everything I write. Oh, I love everything I write." It's the creators that know that they have something, but like they need to massage a little bit more, or it was a cool idea, but I don't know, or this is the one. I mean, for me, my personal kind of method is when I'm coming up with something new. If I get like inspired by something, I'm walking down the street, I'm on a vacation, something I see, I write down a title and a idea, like maybe a sentence, 2 tops, on like my notepad on my phone. And if I don't remember to go back to it, then it sucked.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah.
If there's no inner gut desire to be like, you don't even have to remember what you said. You have to be like, shit, I remember I wrote something that's just drawing me to read it again. And then if I get to it, I'm like, okay, cool. Let's build on this. But the idea is like not everything is great and not everything is bad and not everything is blah. But being your own best critic, not worst critic, but being your own best critic allows you to have that confidence when you think you have something, but also allows you to kind of open up your kind of guard, right? Because all of us creatives think that any constructive criticism on an idea is a personal shot to the abdomen with a samurai sword, right? and just being able to kind of step beyond that and hear criticism when you should take it, and also know when someone's just being a hater, and right. Being able to differentiate that on your own. That is, to me, the mastery that people need to focus on. Not necessarily is this story is that feedback right, but like get to a point with yourself. And I caveat with that with like you have to write a lot of really, really fucking shitty shit to get to that point where you realize the difference. But when you get there, then you know.
Yeah, absolutely. A guy that helped me take my writing to the next level, he once told me, he said, don't worry about writing fast. Worry about writing well. You'll eventually write fast, right? And I think the same thing can apply to the creative process and to the trust that you have when it comes to your creative process. And we touched on this last time. Hi, Joe. You're muted.
Somebody dropped out.
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. I was reading one of the comments. And I was reading Tom Smithson's comment about somebody telling him that he needs to write what they wanted. And then I instead of pressing back, I pressed login and it blew up.
Well, you know what? And Sean, that's you're right. That is advice, but that is bad advice, but it's not a bad job offer. Right. So if somebody says to you, I want you to write it what I want you to write what I want you to write, then, you know, if it's just a thing for hire and you don't have like that, you know, then that sounds like a good job offer. Not
to build on that, I have taken copious amounts of gigs where somebody else wants me to write what they want to write. If you're getting paid for it, then approach it as I'm getting paid to learn. That's all you have to think. Is I've done script rewrites and prose rewrites and all this stuff for people on the side. And in my mind, I'm just like, cool, this person's paying me for me to get better at my skill so that when I get to my stories, they're going to be really good.
Exactly.
So if somebody like Sean, if somebody is asking you to write something and they're paying you for it, take that as an opportunity to make some money while learning how to do what you want to do better.
Right. And the best advice you could take from that statement is that they think you're good enough to write their story. So that's actually a huge compliment. It's not advice, it's a compliment and a job offer. And that's how you got to look at it in the indie world. What's up, Joe?
Well, I thought this was a very interesting question that you guys might want to take up.
Yeah, I actually saw that one come up and I wanted to ping on it. I wrote a note down here on my
ever become an issue? That's the question?
Yeah. So, you know, I think perfectionism is it's a fine line because there's perfectionism, which means you can never call it done and show it to the world. But then there's the thing where a lot of young writers that I know, I'll tell them, write your story from front to back. And then a month later, hey, how's it going? Well, I wrote 10 pages and then I rewrote those 10 pages and then I rewrote those 10 pages and then I rewrote those 10 pages instead of just getting to the end of the story. Right. Yep. Because if you don't write it front to back, even if it's fucking shitty, you're never going to be able to get it done. And so perfectionism, I think, is a two-sided coin. One side being, you know, take that leap of faith and finish your story all the way to the end. And the other side is being a true perfectionist. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah, we all do.
I say the one caveat I'll say is anything that has real budgets behind it, millions plus, excluding from the statement. Everything else, I run on a strict 90-10 rule. That last 10% is important, but it's not important for the creative process. Get it to a place where you're happy and you know there's some work you want to do with it and all that stuff. But as we talked about when I was on last time, I write back to front. Right. So for me, if I don't know the ending of a story, then I don't know how to write the beginning. And if I'm only writing the beginning and I'm rewriting it, to me, that's happening because I don't know where to go.
Right.
But if you know where to go, write that first skeleton. It's like, I don't know. I can compare it to fitness. You're not going to go from fat to ripped in one pass. It's a slow progression. But if you only do the first 10%, you're never going to move, right? You got to go through the whole routine multiple times over and over until you get it to that perfect place.
Right. Exactly.
And real quick, my buddy Johnny Handler, who owns Hero with me, and to me is one of the greatest environment engineers. I want you to talk to Johnny. The way that he thinks about the environment in which we sit in, with all respect to all the Hero comics that we've written, is just it's amazing. And he just texted me saying that he's watching, so I wanted to give him a quick shout out. Awesome,
can't wait to talk, man. So you know, and people are digging what we're saying, and you know, I do know that you write back to front. And you know, we talked about it last time. My process is a little bit different. I do come up with my ending before I come up with my beginning, but I start at almost a random location.
Right.
In my story.
And I love that.
You know what I mean? Like I'll be at a restaurant and I'll see a simple, subtle interaction between two total strangers that I know nothing about, and I'll think about, man, I should put that in something. And I'll go home and I'll write it. But I'm like you, I don't write it until the next day, because if I don't remember to do it the next day, then it's a fucking stupid idea. But if I remember it, or if it sticks with me and I can't get it out of my brain, then I write it down. And then that generally becomes the starting point for almost any idea, because it's such a small thing. And then what will happen to me is I'll grow that seed, and I'll grow it to a point where maybe if I saw an interaction between maybe I saw like a guy propose to a woman at a restaurant and she said no, and then he like acted like an idiot. And I'll write that scene, even though it might not even end up in the movie. I'll just write that scene because that's two characters right there that you don't get to see very often. And so if you write those two characters, you've now got two different ways to go. And then I ask myself, if there's any story out there that I see either of these people that I don't know dying in, living in, being a hero in, whatever. And at that point, once I see my ending, I go back and I write from the beginning to the ending.
But to my point, you write not necessarily back to front, but you write world building, which is really how I look at it also, right? And that is to me the way that you have to write, right? You got to build the world and go where the story takes you, because as we've talked about both on and offline, your story is just really your purview and interpretation of history that you've built, of lore, right? So whether you're following this marriage and this wedding, or you're following a cashier at a coffee shop, or you're following a zombie, or you're following a space adventure, all of those threads allow you to understand the environment more, right? So even if it doesn't end up in the script, the ethos of what you wrote and how that shaped the way that you think about the landscape definitely does.
Absolutely. But now I have to tell you that I can't get this following thought out of my head. Zombie cashiers in space.
I mean, actually, there is definitely something with the idea of whether it be Earth or somewhere else that, and if anybody here takes this idea, we will find you. But but there is definitely something you said about a let's call it Earth apocalypse, zombies everywhere. There's a last spaceship, a bunch of idiot humans just launch them into space, and then the zombies start populating the galaxy through that, and humanity destroyed all life in the universe. I fucking love that as a motif.
And you heard it here. And again, if you know anything about the Brigade, we will fucking find you if you tell The reach is far and wide.
And to our point, if we don't find you, we will blame Joe for it.
That's I'm blaming Joe right now, and it tastes fucking delicious.
Oh, that's so good.
Dude, how much fun do we have on the fucking Indie Brigade? Like, have you ever seen a fucking audience like this engaged? It's not just like...
No, it is crazy, because every time I go to look at the comments, it's like 15 more comments.
I know. It's nuts. Like, our engagement is phenomenal. Everybody here is just, they're here for all the right reasons. That's what we talk about.
Oh no, these comments are fantastic. Well, I want to hit this comment here where wait, where is it? Go, Jack. He goes, I hate writing scenes and having them get cut on the cutting room floor. If it's a 2-hour movie, oh well, it's your vision. I agree and I disagree.
So do I.
So when if you're writing a book or a comic or a or almost for all intents and purposes a single point failure entity, something that you really control from front to back, do exactly your vision. Get an editor though to help get it to the crispest point. My favorite quote, and it is a little cheesy, but it really is my favorite quote. Thomas Jefferson, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter letter. It's
right.
really, really important to realize that length does not mean better. You want to get from A to B as fast as possible, as succinctly as possible. But if you're in a movie and you have film editors and people that do those things and say, hey, this scene, it's cool, but it doesn't really do anything for the story. The point of a movie is to keep you in the world from front to back. And when you get out of it, you're like huffing breath because you just got on a crazy roller coaster. And sometimes the reality is, as a writer and even as a director, you're too close to the story. And you need those people that you trust around you to make it the best version of itself.
Preach. Like, dude, there's absolutely nothing you just said that I don't agree with. There's an expression I like to use, as an artist, I'll never call any of my work finished, but there comes a time when I have to call it done. Right.
Well, 100%.
And that's what it is. And for me, I try to cut out. I'm at a point in my career now when I cut things or when I do stuff, I try to cut out more than I'm comfortable cutting out. Because if I end up with something that's going to be 60 or 70 minutes, then I'd rather have to figure out what do I have left from what I shot that's intriguing enough to put back in. And it's almost easier for me to compartment. And I think this is the same piece of the brain that does the writing sort of backwards like you do and like I do. If I have a 200-minute movie, I'll cut out. I'll just hack and slash at it and then leave that stuff in a timeline over here. And then I'll go back and I'll watch what I believe in that moment to be the tightest, most concise version of the story. And then I'll look at that and I'll think, well, this is good, but I've got all this stuff and I need to put some back in. So I start building again. And at that point, it's like rewriting, right? It's like Legos. You're building back on top of a world that you've now stripped down to its barest fucking bones. And then anything else you add, you can decide does the addition add value, or am I now bored getting from point A to point B? And if you're bored, then you can lose it. And that's how I feel,
No, I'm 100% on the same page. I would even go as far to say that when you are cutting the movie, you almost should cut it down to 50 or 60 minutes. Take out everything that doesn't make your brain hurt. And then figure out, and then once you get to that point, you're at the bones. You're like, these scenes are essential. Now, instead of it feeling like you're taking shit out, now you're figuring out what things to put in. And you have an amazing store of scenes that you've cultivated. And just like going to a grocery shop, you're not going to buy everything unless it's toilet paper. And then you just pick. I had it. And then you're just going to pick the items at the store that fit your needs for that current moment, but you're going to leave things on the shelf.
Right. Absolutely. So what are we talking about? What are we saying?
I don't know. I'm just looking at I'm talking about not buying all the fucking toilet paper, everyone. That's really all I'm talking about.
No, I mean, I'm these comments are just blowing me away.
Yeah, no, exactly. I can't believe it's not toilet paper.
Something tells me that was Joe.
It totally was. That's amazing.
Joe, it's not fair for you to comment like that,
But yeah, I think when I used to always use the analogy when I was writing my novel, I was like, I want to create. I need a block of ice to then chisel down into a sculpture, right? So I always think of it from the point of view of write more, but know you're going to need less. And that should go with that should really transcend not only to your writing, but to your shooting, right? To every part of the artistic kind of journey, you need to always do in excess so you can take less.
That's right.
Because is it art if the end user sees everything you do, or isn't the art you realizing what's important and what is not? And if you're not curating that, then half of what art really is, you're kind of failing at.
Well, yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, if you think about like great painters, right, who've painted some amazing scenes, right, on French riverbanks and all this other shit, and believe it or not, I studied fine art, so I'm just not dropping all the, fine art shit. But say you see a painting by a famous painter on the bank of a river in France, and there's nobody pissing in the river. But when he was painting the painting, odds are maybe somebody was over there pissing in the river, because that's what people did back then, right? So, but the artist made the choice to leave it out of the painting, and that's basically what you're saying.
Exactly.
Because that painting would have been a totally different. It would have been dogs playing poker if he would have left the guy pissing in the river in the painting.
Or how many paintings have you seen from the any era where they have white teeth? Fuck
Right.
no, they didn't have white teeth. They probably had pieces of wood as teeth.
All their teeth.
Yeah,
And they were lucky to have it.
exactly.
I got to bring this up because this is a gentleman that I actually went through to speak with heavy metal. So please.
Oh, there we go.
That's Ricardo. That is our
What's up?
managing editor. I still want to know why demon and devil are pronounced differently. Oh my god! So Ricardo to get it's so great.
We got to have Ricardo on sometime, just so you know.
So to give you some background, Ricardo's our managing editor, and he's in charge of all of our foreign licensing into the magazine. So anytime you see French or Spanish or anything that's not homegrown American, Ricardo's usually the one running the ship on that. And there's an ongoing joke in house because Ricardo lives in Mexico, right around Mexico City, and he just doesn't understand why demon and devil are not pronounced the same way. It's so great. It is my favorite part of every day when we have this conversation because he does. This is like this goes on anytime me and him chat. He asks. It is the greatest thing. But it's just fantastic. But well, I somebody here.
Oh, go ahead. No. I think my answer would be because here in this country, I guess the devil's a little bit higher ranking than the demons, right? So
that is true. The devil does have a higher ranking, but like that's not everywhere, right?
Right.
Yeah. Some places the demons have more. All right, wait. Yeah. So let's see what Jack said here. Matt, if you have an anthology film that has a lot of length, like 2+ hours, would you split up into 2 movies or keep it as one anthology film? How many stories are in your film? 2 hours plus is ambiguous. Is it 205 or is it 245? If you can split it into like $1.15 each, maybe. If it's 2 and change, maybe leave it as 1. How long is each story within the anthology? There's a lot of questions that I would have on that. But my I don't know. What do you think, George? Like, what would you do on something that might be? Let's play devil's advocate and say it's 205.
Okay,
really enough to do 2 movies, if that, but really a little bit long for 1.
So here's my thing on anthologies. Some of the biggest headaches I've ever had came after conversations with people in the mainstream industry about anthologies. Because the general mindset in the traditional world of sales, the general mindset in the traditional world of theatrical distribution and the big budget stuff is that anthologies aren't worth it. They don't make money. That, it's the whole list. It's the laundry list of all the reasons why you shouldn't try to make and sell an anthology. And then they bring up movies like Creepshow, and they bring up movies like, the good anthologies, right? Like
original.
They bring up the good ones and they say that it won't work anymore. I think, but then there's a handful of indie anthology style movies that have done really well. And, I think that when you're dealing with an anthology, you need to look at the subject and the genre. You need to look at the audience that you made your piece for. And then odds are, if you're an indie and you made an anthology film, it's geared toward the indie audience. And I think that just those factors alone means you need to just bang through it. It needs to be like 10 or 15 minute stories. You need to get them all in there, try to fit your entire anthology down to 90 minutes or less, and tighten it up, because you want people, if you're going to keep people involved in an anthology that may or may not have named talent, that may or may not have, a great soundtrack, that may have any shortcomings at all. And I don't know, because I haven't seen obviously what anybody's talking about, but if it's turn any weaknesses into your strength, keep your audience, make it fast, get them in, get them out, tell your stories, get them done, wrap them up, and leave your audience walking home or turning off the TV nowadays with a sense of satisfaction, like they just came through a rock concert. That's what I think about anthology.
I agree. I would go even one step further, with all of that, I agree. And the next step is I personally, and this is definitely atypical, and I'm assuming you probably feel the same way, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I honestly don't care what it is, anthology, regular movie, TV show. Good content is good content, and we are in a content age. So when you say, hey, is this anthology good, long enough or whatever, and just because Jack just responded, his is 13 shorts for about 90 minutes. And if all 13 shorts, Jack, are engaging, then that's the perfect length. It's not, to me, necessarily about the length, because we all, for anyone that's a fan of Marvel, the Endgame was 3 hours and 23 minutes, and I thought it was like 90 seconds. I thought it could have gone on for much longer because I was so invested into the 23 movies that came before it. Every moment of Avengers Endgame felt really fucking great. Transversely, I hated every single minute of Rise of Skywalker, just for the exact reasons why I loved Endgame. I hated Rise of Skywalker, but that is a conversation for another day with much more drinking. I was told that I was getting some text that my light was a little bit dimming, so I just threw on.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, we've got a lot more stuff to talk about, and we're going to be
tangenting.
This is going to be a regular thing. Matt's going to be on. We're going to be talking about all kinds of shit. We're going to be basically just philosophizing, because this is how he and I hit it off, and this is how we started talking and working together, and this is how literally what you all are witnessing in real time between the Indie Brigade and Heavy Metal Magazine is happening in real time.
Maybe that's a good segue for some of the stuff that we were talking about earlier, where maybe you and I should be writing a couple of stories together and seeing what happens.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think that you and I have landed on a few stories already. And I think that
Hi, Jeff.
Right when we hit a stride, here he comes to interrupt. What?
A fucking stride. So, what you guys didn't touch on is what you discussed on Instagram. Only Instagram people know that. So you guys need to hit on that.
Oh, yeah. We talked about stuff on Instagram. Yeah. Oh, I understand what he's saying. All right. Well, listen, why don't you recap that, and then we'll jump back here.
Fine. I still blame you, Joe, but good job. So it looks like I can say that most of the people chatting here and that are fans of Romero Pictures and you and the legacy probably like zombies, right? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
And I think I would hope most people on this chat know who Nelson, the B-17 zombie, is from Heavy Metal.
Right.
And for everybody listening, watching, blaming Joe while they're listening and watching, we'll be excited to hear that George is going to be writing the first installment of Nelson's adventures outside of the movie and his own encapsulated zombie series.
Fuck yes. And I'm really excited about it. And this is something that we talked about and went back and forth on a lot, because I know that you were, one of the first things that you were concerned about was, how I felt about working on that with Rise and all of this other stuff. But, it's like we discussed, I think I'm at a point in my life and my career where I've written, I've produced, I've directed, I've done enough of that stuff that I've developed my very own distinctive voice. And I'm very grateful every day that you like that voice. And, the idea of bringing that voice and giving Nelson his own voice for this is something that has me freaking out, staying up all night, watching the Heavy Metal movie over and over and over again. Yes. So,
and I think for your fans, they should probably know that a good deed doesn't go unvalued. And with you writing Nelson, I think it's only fair for Heavy Metal to turn Rise into a graphic novel.
Absolutely. And I think Heavy Metal is the absolute best place on earth for that to happen. I think that the legacy brand of heavy metal that you are so beautifully and gracefully doing what you're doing with, dude, your new website is sick. The marriage of that brand, heavy metal coming on board, doing the graphic novel for Rise is it does my heart so much good. So everything is in good hands and as it should be. We're gonna get Nelson out there, we're gonna get Rise out there, and people are gonna freak the fuck out over all the other shit too that we're not dropping yet. But it does exist. But we have our lawyers basically being like, our lawyers are like, stop, you can't tell everybody everything yet.
but again, I just go back to, if we tell them too much, we can blame Joe. And
that's right. Good.
Yeah.
It's a global message.
Oh, it's so great.
See, this is what happens when Joe gets rest. We don't like it when Joe gets rest.
Oh, does Joe doesn't rest?
Not much, but this is like a lot of rest. He got a lot of sleep, like 16 hours of sleep, so he's all salty and shit. You know.
Oh my God. Does Joe, do you, wait, no, Joe, come back. I have a question for you. Do you not sleep because Freddie comes in your dreams, or do you not sleep because George comes in your dreams?
If either one of them come in my dreams, but no, somebody may work me. I'm kidding. No, it's all for the greater good and to expand the brand.
No, I love it.
Worthwhile.
And we have Jack here. I'm so obsessed with these comments now.
I know.
I didn't really see it the last time because I was on the private chat vertical. And
yeah.
now I'm on the live.
Joe have a nude cameo? What kind of money is involved in that?
Well, Clegg is going to draw you like one of his French girls, so you know.
I better be very succulent.
But I think with Rise, to just talk about for a second, and for me the graphic novel is and I don't want to say too much, but I think it's one of many within that series, named in a very specific way that I think all of the fans of Romero Pictures are gonna absolutely fall in love with, and that to me, and that's the idea of being able to. And what we've talked about, pay homage, but really start a new chapter is what's so exciting to me. What really got me excited when we first started talking was just how mind meld, how Vulcan like we are in the understanding of how to use legacy to talk about things that need to be talked about, but not to use it as a crutch. Right?
Well, that's right. That's right. But to defend it, like I look at it like this, and you're going to understand this more than almost anybody else because you are a vanguard of a legacy, right? And that's essentially what I'm trying to do as well. I'm trying to make sure that, look, my name is George Romero. My father's name is George Romero. My father did some amazing things, and there is iconic value to that. And he is arguably one of the most important filmmakers in the indie scene and definitely in the horror scene. And I love him more than I can possibly even tell anybody. And so if I'm going to do this life and I'm going to do this shit as an artist and put that raw nerve out into the world, and my name is George Romero, you better be goddamn sure that not only am I going to respect and love the legacy from which I come, but I am going to do my motherfucking best to make sure that I guard that legacy and my own name. Because you need to basically continue an honorable journey, right? It's an honorable journey. It's one of the most honorable journeys I could ever have asked to be on, and I didn't get asked for it, but it is my life, and I'm so fucking proud of it. It's not even funny.
Honestly. Not to go too sci-fi on such a horror person, but you just realistically said Luke Skywalker's basis.
Yeah, I guess I did. Oh, motherfucker. All right. Matt, we gotta wrap it up. I got Madison's show coming on in 20 minutes. So Joe needs a break or he gets cranky. Oh, thank you, Sean.
No, well, and this obviously tons of fun, and as you said, we'll be doing this much more. So I'm always happy to answer these questions. Are so fun. So we also, I mean, yeah, these are so fun. And if you guys ever want to see more stuff, we usually do Instagram lives on Heavy Metal's Instagram like 2 to 3 times a week, usually at 11 a.m. PST. So like check out our story on Mondays, and we kind of give out the lineup then. And yeah, stay tuned for more Nelson and Rise stuff from us.
Yeah, and it's going to be amazing, and definitely go, if you don't follow Heavy Metal already, go do that. Follow them on Instagram. I thought that Instagram live thing was fun as hell. So
they got such a great response. Everyone loved it.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be doing a bunch more of those, and stay tuned here because RomeroPictures.com, we're going to drop everything there and through our Facebook and through our Instagram, and we're working on making, getting everything all tagged and linked together and all that stuff. So basically everything will become transparent as time moves forward for everybody. But literally so much is happening that you just gotta have a little patience and let us wrangle it all in and wrangle the best way to kind of roll out the information. We already know most of it, if not all of it, but we can't roll it out all at the same time. Cool. Fucking Joe. I love you, Joe. Matt, thank you so much, brother. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you tomorrow, man.
Sounds good. Later, man.
Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Go ahead. You don't even have anything mean to say, do you? You have nothing bad to say about me tonight. Haha.
Damn it.
I'm that guy that you hate to love, I guess, right?
Love to hate, hate to love.
Yeah.
I don't know. Matt's starting to piss me off with his hair. Tell him to wear a hat next time.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yep.
No. Dude, his hair will blow yours away, right out the water. We may as well shave yours off now.
Well, not a year ago, I would have been some competition, but
you know what? But now you're second place, so I think
I'm going to put him on the spot now.
Joe is now second place, so that means we have to go to Florida and shave his head as soon as we're allowed out of our houses.
Mine was 3 times longer than that a year and a half ago. Damn it! But anyway.
Joe, look at my Instagram. Like I don't know, half the way down, there's a photo from I didn't cut it at all for 4 years, and then the missus made me. It was elvish long for a while.
It sounds like the same situation I was in, and yes, the missus made me cut it, and yeah, sore subject, but but thank you for showing us your long locks. We appreciate that. Now I'm gonna do what Joe does and say bye, because I am jealous of the hair now.
I think we had a pretty amazing show tonight. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, between the knowledge that Michael Berryman dropped and the whole lighting thing, that was kind of cool. When all of a sudden he's black, and then
yep,
that was sick.
Yeah,
Matt kind of knows a few things too, apparently.
Oh yeah. So I think look, it's pretty amazing what's happening right now, everybody, and all I can tell you is buckle the fuck up. Because shit's getting real with the Indie Brigade. So sit back, be a part of it, help us out, support us. If you like us, if you learn anything, if you spend any of your time with us and feel like helping us keep the server going, go to the Buy Me a Coffee, which I don't know how to tell you where to do that, but it's somewhere on our fucking social.
Don't even know anymore. It might be there.
There it is, buymeacoffee.com/RP Indie Brigade. If you feel like just throwing a couple bucks in the tip jar, anything helps us keep the servers on, keep the lights on. Go ahead and get your merch at RomeroPictures.com. Literally, I don't know how much longer the LE stuff is going to be up there because it's going away as soon as I get the fucking time. Scare Tactical, help us out there. Always help us. That always helps us help the veterans. Check us out everywhere you want to go, anywhere you want to check us out. I don't know. I got nothing. Where's David?
I thought you wanted to talk to me for a second, but
Not why.
That's not rosy cheeks. That's lighting. That's what we were talking about earlier. Were you not paying attention? No, I'm kidding. It's rosy cheeks. Well, we got to go through.
Thank you, Lance.
Well, see, you want to like zip through everything, and we have all these amazing people. So
I know.
Give them a second, and
thank you, Terry, Drone Jesus.
Lance is trying to push us off to get to Williams.
Well, and you know why? You know why we're all excited? David's got a phenomenal guest lineup tonight.
Well, let him say.
We're all fucking excited about it. Jack Hunter, Veterans Compound for Life. David Madison, sir, how are you? You look great. You look safe. You look healthy. How's life?
Thank you very much. How are you, gentlemen?
Great.
Excellent.
Wonderful show tonight.
Thank you very much, David. I'm very much looking forward to yours.
Thank you. I don't know if you don't know, we're going to have the legendary William Sadler on tonight, and we're going to have Dahlia Legault from The Walking Dead, and we're going to have the director of the Malevolence trilogy, Stevan Mena himself, will be here. So to continue with the all-star parade that George started this evening, we're just going to go take you through the end of the night, with who we have.
Boom. I cannot wait. I'm going to be dialed in. I'm going to go out to the wood shop and watch from my laptop, though, so I can have a couple of cigarettes.
George, can I have the floor for just 2 seconds?
Please, David.
I just got news over the last 5 minutes on Facebook that my friend Jason Moulton, who's a very beloved convention promoter in Northeast, his lovely wife, Natasha, was just rushed out of their house in very severe condition with the COVID virus. So everybody, please keep them in your prayers tonight.
We absolutely will.
I don't mean to bring your show down, but this is the reality we live in. And a shout out from us tonight will make him feel, because imagine this, George, you're home with your wife and your 2 small little kids, which is his case. And you go up to check on your wife, who you know is sick, and she's totally unresponsive. And men come in an ambulance and rush her out of there, and you're not allowed to go, and you have to stay home. And your friends can't come over and comfort you. So it's, it's just...
It's a fucking nightmare situation, and I want nothing but a positive outcome of that for everybody involved.
So, Jason, when you get around to watching this, we all love you in the community, and we hope that Natasha gets well very soon.
Yeah, absolutely, and the Brigade is absolutely out there behind you. So, thank you for that. And
absolutely.
Listen, we're going to do the sign off here, and then you're on in about 12 minutes.
Yeah, George, please join me in the beginning of my show. I love opening up the show with you.
Okay, sure.
And we'll even let Joe tag along if he needs to.
Absolutely. Muted.
Damn it. Totally went out the window with that. Okay, so what I said was I may or may not be in the mood, but apparently that ship has sailed. Are
we ready to bring up the house lights, Joe?
I'm going to drop David down. I'm going to let you do your exit, and we'll see you shortly, David. And am I ready? No, because I hate doing this program with that. But, we'll figure it out.
Well, we will.
Go ahead and do your thing.
All right, everybody. Well, listen, thank you so much for tuning in tonight to Romero Pictures Indie Brigade with me, your host, George C. Romero, and my ever faithful and present producer extraordinaire, Mr. Joe Ridgely. It has been a phenomenal night talking with Mr. Michael Berryman and Matt Medney, CEO of Heavy Metal Magazine. And stay tuned for David Madison coming up on the end of the night with his phenomenal lineup tonight. And that's about it. So I guess everybody just fuck off till next time.
And see, this is when it gets complicated. Not really.
There's no audio.
Don't even tell me there's no audio. Is there no audio?
There's no audio.
Seriously? The hell you say?
Mm-hmm. This is like when you leave a meeting and you go press the elevator button and the person you just said goodbye to is waiting to get on the elevator with you. And you're like, great meeting. See you next time. And then you end up next to each other awkwardly.
Okay, so we're gonna get awkward for a second because now I'm annoyed because I had that all prepped out, man. That wasn't even I did that hours ago. So now I got to find the right one because she said 432. Hey. Hey. Un momento, por favor. Gracias. All right. So while I look for that,
just waiting at the elevator with the person you just said goodbye to. Oh, you're getting on the elevator too. All right, buddy. Well, yeah, good meeting. Yeah, okay. And then the elevator doesn't come. It goes like to the next floor, and you're just standing there, and you're like, "Fuck! How many times do I have to say goodbye?" And then the elevator, you think it's going to land on the floor, and you're like, "All right, buddy. Well, that's my elevator." And then he gets in with you, and then you're in the elevator, and you're like, oh, "This is fucking weird." Then you get to the bottom, and you're like, "All right, this is it. Goodbye for real." And then you end up going to the fucking same floor of the parking garage. All right, fuck off till next time. To be an indie means we buck a system that doesn't want us. To be a fringe filmmaker means we don't do it for them. We do it for ourselves. To be an outlaw on the fringe means we'll die before we fail. Be an outlaw.
And I will hit the mute button just like that.
Wow. You caught me kind of ozoning there. How long was I being watched being in space?
Only a few seconds, but before I do that, consider me a slacker. I do apologize. Let's change over to the end of the night. Not that anybody saw that, right? And let's looking for. Oh, it disappeared. David, don't hate me. The intro disappeared.
I didn't even know I had an intro, so don't worry about it.
Okay, fair enough. You know,
I have an intro?
Well, you did. But
Yeah, it's a cool intro too. I've changed my lighting. Do you like it? It's a little bit more.
It's much more atmospheric. It's much more moody. I like it very much.
It's much more Berryman.
I need to gel that light in the back though, because it's just way too hot. I just haven't done it.
It makes the Scare Tactical look cool.
Yeah, it does. I'm going for the sinister. It's the end of the night, you know. I don't have to necessarily be. Although Kane Hodder said I don't look like a friendly person. So, David, how are you tonight?
I'm doing as well as could be as expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm awful sorry to hear the news about your friend.
I am too. I mean, it's when you hear about somebody so young, she's just a beautiful young girl and a very sweet human being. And the circumstances around this whole thing for everybody is just so horrific. So, you know, but we're here not to dwell on the sadness, but to give people a smile.
Yeah, we're here to recognize the sadness and let everybody know that we are here for them through it. But what we're trying to do, I think, at least what I'm trying to do, and I think that we're all on the same page with this, is provide a little bit of an escape from something that is so unbelievably heavy on everybody right now. And, you know, anybody that is willing to come and escape from that for a couple of hours with us, we're grateful that you're here. And
absolutely,
you know, we'll all get through this one way or another.
And another thing, I just started yesterday. I think you guys are aware. I decided to make a documentary film to capture, you know, the times that we're living in this terrible quarantine, pandemic, and all these horrific things. So if anybody watching out there wants to be a part of what I think is going to be a truly historic film, because it's going to capture moments in real time of what we're living through right now, please IM me, and I will give you instructions on how to be a part of it. So IM me, and hopefully we can do something that will be long lasting, and for generations to come, people will be able to sit back and watch this documentary and have a better understanding of the way we lived during this time, which is getting stranger by the day.
It really is, and I'm very proud to say that I'm definitely excited to be a part of that doc. So,
awesome.
Thank you for the invitation to do so, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about it.
You know, it's funny. I spoke for hours with Joe Ridgely's agent, Joe Cat, of course, and Joe Cat was a tough negotiator, but after some kibbles and bits and making sure that Joe got a very nice trailer. I think we came to an agreement to have Joe appear in the film. But, I got my fingers crossed.
What you didn't hear in that conversation was that they still had to go back and actually get Joe to sign off on it. And,
I know.
So now it comes down to that. And, Joe's he's a tough bastard, man. He doesn't like to do much.
Is Joe Cat meowing promises that you're not going to keep, Joe?
Well, I heard trailer. That's a whole hell of a lot better than my Kenmore box.
That's where we met, isn't it, Joe?
It is, by the dumpster. Oh, we can always find fun in anything, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Keith, just so you know, we stay live. The Indie Brigade rolls directly into David's show, The End of the Night. And then you can always catch the rebroadcast of the entire night on Avail TV and on our YouTube channels as well. Joe is difficult. He's always difficult. That's what Joe does. His name is Joe Difficult Ridgely.
I am just sending Mr. Sadler a message to make sure that he didn't doze off.
He's there. He's already here.
Oh, he's here.
He's been here for the past 10, 15 minutes. He's anticipating coming up here.
How in the world are we wasting precious time?
He is a professional, and he does not want to hear the debauchery that we've got going on right now. So somebody introduce this man, please.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, our first guest tonight, if you love films, if you love anything pop culture, you know who our first guest is. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. William Sadler. Hey, Bill, how you doing tonight?
I'm okay. How are you?
Doing very well. How is everything out by where you guys are?
Oh my goodness, it's quiet up here. I live about 75 miles north of New York City, but I watch the news, and what's going on down there is just absolutely heartbreaking. It's remarkable. Anyway, I heard about your friend, and I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
It's I don't want to start the show on a downer, but it's hard not to acknowledge what everybody's going through. It's like the elephant in everybody's room right now.
Do you know what's so horrifying about it, Bill, is that somebody young and full of life, and she was doing very well for like the last 10 days. She was recovering really well. And just out of nowhere, Jason, her husband, went up to check on her, and she was totally unresponsive.
That's just astonishing.
I'm hearing,
and the cruel, and of course the cruelest part is that no one can go with her. No one can,
Right, you're kind of imprisoned at your home. You can't be with the one you love. You can't hold them in the ambulance ride there, and it's just, we're actually living in a Stephen King film. It's just horrific.
It's a nightmare.
Yep.
Well, we will get through it.
We absolutely will. And I want to thank you.
I have no doubt of that. You want to thank me for what?
I want to thank you for these wonderfully inspiring, and I'm not being corny or disingenuous, these wonderfully inspiring little musical pieces that you're putting up, these songs that you are writing and sharing with your fans and friends on Facebook. They are fantastic. They are very the one you wrote a couple days ago about your love was very light and put a smile on my face. And the one you released this morning was much more deeper and more heartfelt about, I guess, the times we live in. So, but
well, thank you. I plan to keep putting them out. And I feel like a dinosaur in this age of digital digitery-dooery. But I sit here in my kitchen and play them and record them until I think they sound okay, and then I put them on Facebook, and then a friend of mine has to give me the link that I can then put on Twitter, and then people can find them. But yeah, I've been writing and songs and playing songs. I don't know, 20, 25 years or something. Maybe since I was in high school, I guess the first ones I wrote.
Sweet. You're an amazingly talented musician. And, I'm sure everybody who's watching us tonight, knows you as being a wonderful actor. But it's like you're a triple threat, as they say in baseball.
If I could dance, I don't think there's only a handful of people who've ever seen me dance. So the classic triple threat is they can act, they can sing, and they can dance.
Yes. No, but you got comedic timing.
One out of three ain't bad. What?
No. I want to introduce you to George C. Romero. He is the gentleman whose show is right before us. He is an unbelievably talented filmmaker. You might know his dad, George Romero Sr. And,
I do.
And I just want to introduce you guys. George, you want to say hello to Mr. Sadler if you have any questions?
I do. It's an absolute pleasure and an honor to meet you, sir. I've been a fan of you for as long as I can remember, and I'm very honored that you're here on the Brigade Network. We're trying to do something a little different than most podcasts do out there, and it's beginning to really resonate with our audience and our fans. And we don't even call them fans; we call them members of the Brigade, because that's really what we are. We're starting a movement. And that battle cry is that don't just be an indie, be an outlaw filmmaker. And we talk about a lot of things having to do with the creative struggle, and we talk about a lot of things having to do with teaching young filmmakers how to be better filmmakers and teaching them things that they can't learn. Stuff that just as well as we all do. That you learn because you happen to sit at the right table in a restaurant and overhear a conversation between two people that taught you something about this business. And we try to provide some of that experience to our viewers and our audience. And the fact that you were willing to spend some time here tonight just means the world to me. And I thank you, sir.
Wow, my pleasure. My pleasure. I love it.
I think what we're trying to do is just help people just maybe not think about the pressures and the evils of what's going on right now, because it's so heavy and it's so destructive to a lot of people's creative process.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're onto something. I've been inspired watching people get creative on Twitter and YouTube and what have you. Messages coming out. No one can leave home. I mean, no one with any brains leaves home.
Right.
In an effort to, bend this curve, flatten this curve, save just a few lives by staying home, please.
Right.
But it's been amazing to see how creative people have gotten, musically and writing. It's been remarkable. I guess we've suddenly find ourselves with a lot of time on our hands.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, though, for the creatives. I think that this is a time to focus on bettering your writing, bettering your craft, learning to trust your inner creative a little bit more, which is a big thing that I talk about a lot, which is that you've got to trust that voice inside. And a big topic tonight was you've got to learn to tell when to call something done, even though as an artist you'll never call it finised. And you were just kind of talking about that with regard to your songs.
That's exactly right. You have to at some point you have to say, okay, that's that one's in the can. I can't make it any better than that. And even though you might be able to, but you do. The other part of what you have to trust is that you can put it out there. I've been sitting on these songs for years and years and years. I've been carrying them around with me in my hip pocket. I used to do coffee houses in LA back in the 90s. And, so there's like 150 people have heard an hour of these songs. But to share them. I read a sonnet for Twitter for the hashtag read me a sonnet or whatever it was. And it was fantastic. I mean, the response was just amazing. So it's funny. There's like a community. People in the fear and the stress of all of this, I think, is making people reach out and look for those things, look for ways to connect with our fellow human beings. Now that you have to sit in a building and not go anywhere,
Yeah.
And watch the news, this terrifying news day after day after day. I think it's great that people are connecting and, appreciating each other in a way that I never saw before. It was great.
Yeah, I haven't seen it anything like this ever before. I was raised in the indie community and in the specifically in the indie horror community, and there is once you earn the respect of the community, it's very nurturing. But this is something unlike I think I've ever seen, and I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like it. It's inspiring to watch, and so are you, sir. And I'm very proud that you're here tonight. And
thank you.
I don't want to take up any more time of David's show. I just wanted to speak with you. So thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a great chat the rest of the night. I'm going to go into my wood shop and put it on the laptop. Thank you again.
Thank you, George. And if you want to drop in and ask a question, it's
feel free.
You got it. All right. Have a great chat, guys.
Everybody, George Romero, Mr. Sadler. I know that you have. Okay, I'm sorry. I know that you have a passion for stage acting, and can you share any stories, interesting stories of things that happened to you while you were performing live on stage or on Broadway?
Well, it's late at night. I guess I can share this one. I was doing. I started out doing theater. I did an awful lot of theater before. It was something like 11 years of theater in New York before I did my first movie, which is which is true. I sometimes wonder if I'd gone out to LA when I was, really, dumb and cute. Where I might have ended up, but I didn't. I stayed in New York and I did a lot of theater. All right, here's an embarrassing story. I did a show called Dial M for Murder, which Hitchcock made a great movie out of, and I played Tony Wendis, the tennis star, who's trying to murder his wife, Margot, and about a week into the run, I get the flu. We're out at the Queens Festival Theater. It's about a 900-seat theater in Queens at the Old World Fair Theater. And I got the flu. I got a fever, and I'm sick, and I'm sneezing, and I feel flu-y. I'm just awful, but there's no understudy. So I'm gonna go on. There's no, I'm the lead in this show, and there's no understudies, and on you go. So I got through the first scene, and I went downstairs and changed into my costume for the rest of the first act, and it's a tuxedo, right? And I came back upstairs, and I'm standing in the middle of the backstage. There's a door in the center of the stage, and I'm checking my props, and I got the key, I got the keys, and I got the letter, and I have the gloves and a thing, and this and that, and I'm wearing a tuxedo now, right? And I feel a big sneeze coming on, and I don't want the audience to hear it out there, so I turned away from the door, and I covered my face, and I went like this, and I shit my pants. It was just like, blah, and it went sneeze, shit, cue. I'm standing there with my hand on the doorknob, and there's nothing you can do at that point. There's your cue. There's a stage full of actors and a house full of people. And hello, Margot. Good to see you, Jack. We're off to the club then, are we? And it went on through the whole rest of the first act. And everywhere, instead of sitting down like where we had blocked, I was going to sit on the couch and sit at the desk. I just sort of leaned against things, kind of jaunty, and finally made it out of there. But anyway.
But you got to look at the bright side. If that happened if that happened now, when you sneezed, they would have shot you.
I know. If I'd sneezed like that now,
yes,
it would have emptied the theater. Would have been a stampede. My God. No, it's like, but people go on. I remember I did Biloxi Blues for a year and a half on Broadway. I remember Matthew Broderick, the star of that one. He had understudies, but it's a big deal if the star can't go on. People want their money back. And Matthew, I remember him running off stage, and they had buckets for him to throw up in on either side of the stage. He was that sick, the glamour.
It's funny. One time I was at I don't know, I'm pals with a rock star named Nick Lowe. He's not overly famous, but some people know of him. And Nick Lowe, he sang Cruel to Be Kind and I Knew the Bride When She Used to Rock and Roll. Those were his big hits.
Yeah.
And Nick went on stage one time about 3 summers ago. And I'm only telling this story because Nick lives in England and he'll never in a trillion years watch the show and get pissed off at me about it.
Hi, Nick.
But he's on the bottom. No. Nick was playing I Knew the Bride When She Used to Rock and Roll. And halfway through the song, he let out this ungodly sneeze and his dentures flew out.
Whoa! Dude.
Then his guitar player was like on the floor of the stage looking for his teeth. Yeah, no, looking for his teeth.
No, looking for his... Oh my God.
So you are not alone in these horror stories.
No. Live performing. The joys of live performing. No, I like the movies. I discovered the movies. My wife finally said to me one day, you could make money doing this. And you don't have to do these things for off Broadway.
Well, jumping to your unbelievable movie career, can you tell us a little bit of what it was like working with Bruce Willis and Rennie Harlan on Die Hard 2?
That was great. I think that was my third. Oh, look, there he is. What a dangerous looking dude.
Scary.
Yeah. That was my third. I think that was my third film. I forget, was it Hard to Kill with Steven Seagal, and then The Hot Spot, and then that. But yeah, Bruce was fun to work with. I only had a couple of moments with him. I beat him up on the wing of the plane, and and most of that was a stuntman named Randy Hall, because they don't want. I mean, they needed somebody who could kickbox the shit out of Bruce Willis and not hit his face with your boot, right? But it had to look like you hit his face with your boot, and so on. So if you watch that fight, if you can see my face on screen, it's probably not Bruce doing the kicking and punching. Mm-hmm. And if you can see his face, it's in all likelihood it's Randy Hall. Or Monty Cox was the other stunt guy who doubled me. But anyway, yeah, Bruce was great. Bruce was, he took his shoe. He's a little taller than me. When we met, the other scene we had was in the airport. We bump into each other, and he says, "Don't I know you from somewhere?" And I say, "I don't think so. I get that a lot," or something like that. And they asked him to take his shoes off because he had these shoes with these great big heels. And he did, and it was he was very nice about it, but it made I still didn't come across looking like Dolph Lundgren, but at least he wasn't towering over me. But he was great. Rennie was interesting. Rennie had he directed something just before that. I think it was like his second movie or something, and he was interesting to work with. There was no nude scene in the script. There's no Colonel Stewart's not nude at the beginning of the movie. That was Rennie's idea, But he didn't tell me about it until we got to the costume fitting, and there's no costume for that scene. And I tried on everything else, and I said, what am I wearing in the hotel when I'm doing the Tai Chi? And he said, and he got quiet and he looked at the costumer and he said, I was thinking, actually, you might be nude. And I should have hit him up for money for it, I guess. But like I said, it was my third movie. And I said, okay, well, you push that scene off to the end of the shooting and get me a trainer and, get me in the gym and I'll see what I can do. And they did. And that's, but then the only thing I remember about the movie from then on was doing crunches, and they had this guy named Keith Kuba for a trainer, and he just worked me to death for 2 months or something. Because you'd be surprised how motivated you get when your butt's gonna hang out in the biggest summer blockbuster action movie. I didn't want to look at it when I'm 60 and say, wow, could have done a couple of sit-ups anyway.
A few moments ago, you had brought up a name, Steven Seagal, and I have heard you in the past tell a wonderful story about that film, especially about the alternate ending. Or is that something that you'd like to share on this?
Sure. The movie is Hard to Kill. The original title was 7 Years Storm, which I always thought was cooler because he's in a coma for 7 years, and then his name is Storm. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the original ending of the movie is he finds me in my mansion, and I'm wearing a bathrobe, right? And he's got a little shotgun, sawed-off shotgun, and I take a swing at him with a fireplace poker or something, and he grabbed. This is the original. This is what the original thing we shot. He grabs me by the bathrobe and throws me in a burning fireplace, and holds me in the fireplace while he burns to death. And he takes this Andy Warhol painting of me and puts it on top, and it burns up. Which I guess was very satisfying in some movie, but Warner Brothers watched it, and they went to him and said, you can't end the movie that way. We have to reshoot the ending. He's got to go off in handcuffs, but we need to do something to him that's humiliating and awful before he goes off in handcuffs. So we all got back together, and I think they spent like $500,000 or something to get the whole cast, the location again, and the trailers, and the this and that. And I'm standing there in a bathrobe, ready to, I don't know what they're going to shoot, the new ending. And Bruce Malmuth, the director, said, well, it's got to be easy. I think he takes a swing at you with the poker, and sorry, the screen keeps going black. Oh, there you are. But it should be really humiliating. Like he grabs your ear and he smashes your head against the floor, and then he rips your eye and kicks you in the balls. And Seagal said, no, I don't want to. I'm going to grab his tongue. I'll rip his tongue out of his head, and I'll pick him up and break his back over my knee, and I'll grab his nuts and bread. And I'm standing there listening to this, thinking, this is getting worse by the minute. But they got into a big fight because Bruce and Steven didn't like each other, and they got in a big fight. They couldn't agree, and Seagal stormed off the set. He's back in his trailer. He won't come out. And I'm thinking. I remembered a moment. I think it was in Missouri Breaks. Either Missouri Breaks or Oklahoma Crude. It was one of those two. But this actor held a sawed-off shotgun underneath the bad guy's chin and urinated all over his legs, right? Just like pissed all over his feet. And the guy's just like seething. He's so, it's like, "Argh!" And I thought it was an image that just got burned into my head. And I said, what if Stevan, he's got this little shotgun. What if he's got it under my chin and it goes down out of frame and you see my character go, hey, whoa, come on, no, please, no, boom. And I check and it's all still there. And then he can say, I don't know how I could have missed. Must be smaller than I thought. It's something like that.
Your Steven Seagal is horrifyingly good.
Well, thank you. And so I told the producers and Malmuth, and they laughed, and they thought that was great. But then they thought, well, who's going to tell Steven? Because if it comes from Malmuth, he won't like it. So they asked me to go knock on his trailer door, and I did. And I told him the idea, and he said, great, let's shoot it. and it was like, and that was it. And it was all of a sudden that was the interesting,
and it sounds
funny, humiliating ending for the character.
But it sounds so much more clever than what Seagal wanted to do.
Well, they were trying to outdo each other with how I'm going to rip his ear off. I'm going to stomp on his throat, and then it was just anyway. That's how Hard to Kill got the ending that it got.
A film of yours that's actually one of my favorites, Kinsey, with Liam Neeson and.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit of what it was like to be directed by Bill? Was it Bill Condon? Is my memory correct?
That's right. That's right. I found it's funny you should mention it because I think I only had the one, sort of like 1.5 scenes in that movie. Mm-hmm. But he's an actual character. He's a real human. This guy, Kevin Braun, I think was his name. And he and Kinsey in real life had been writing back and forth to each other because Kevin Braun had all of these sexual experiences that were illegal. They were with animals and with children and with different species of things and 23 species of animals. But he kept meticulous notes of about it. And Kinsey, just the scientist, knew this is a variation that he wanted to know more about because he knew it existed, but there was no way to study it at all. There was, he was never going to be able to reproduce it in the labs, or, no one's going to admit to that kind of thing. So he and Brun agreed to meet in a hotel room in Chicago. And he took this sexual history from Kevin Brun. And the story is that it lasted 19 hours. That's how many detailed notes. This guy had like a phone book of experiences, and he went through all of them. It was interesting. Trying to get this thing to come back. There it is. I don't know how to keep it. Oh no, there you went away. But Condon, I have to say, of all the directors I've ever worked with, Condon is the one who made it the easiest to go to places that are uncomfortable. They're socially awkward, and they're, they give you pause. You don't want to, you feel actors tend to feel exposed anyway. And Condon, in film after film after film, has helped actors go further than they thought they could go, put themselves out there and be courageous in ways that that just are remarkable. and it's a gift. It's a real gift for a director to be able to do that. And the fact that he's every movie he's ever made, 2 or 3 people are nominated and somebody always wins an Academy Award for their work. Eddie Murphy plays the darkest. It's the best character I've ever seen him play in Dreamgirls, and Jennifer Hudson, who had never acted before, and so on. But anyway, he created this great this atmosphere on the set, and I was able to let my Kenneth Branagh shine, and it was very successful. I walked away from there thinking if there's an Academy Award in my future, it's going to be at the hands of someone like that,
or Darabont.
Yeah,
I mean, yes.
He's another one that won't let go of a scene until he's squeezed everything he can out of the people on them.
As a filmmaker who's not even remotely in the league of the people you're saying, you have no idea how important it is for filmmakers to hear what you're saying, because it's very, very important for them to understand how the craft works and how to do it right. There's a gentleman watching us right now named Jack Hunter, and he's been very patiently asking this question. He wants to know, can you please ask Mr. Sadler about Roswell, the TV show, I assume? What are your thoughts of the reboot of Roswell, New Mexico? And are you going to make a cameo on the second season, is his question. Did you hear me, Bill?
About what?
He was asking about the
what?
reboot of Roswell, New Mexico, and if you were going to make a cameo on the second season.
I would love to reboot the new Roswell, New Mexico.
Right.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty brave. I was, it's not the original, but it's its own thing, and they seem to have captured a bit of that. How strange, strangers in a strange land, these aliens living among us, that we had in the first one. So yeah, the answer is yes. I've watched it, and yes, I would do a cameo if they wanted me to. I hear Jason Behr just did one, or he's going to. If we ever get back to filming,
yeah, it's going to happen.
Okay.
So, a film that I would be remiss not to talk about because it's one of your most beloved characters, and it was the last film that I actually watched. We watched together out in New York. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Yes. What can I tell you about that? Oh, there he is.
Can you tell us? I mean, you had mentioned a very, very funny story about the stuntman on the scene when death was falling towards the character.
Yes, I forget the gentleman's name. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's in the credits somewhere. But there's a scene where the boys are dead and they come back to Earth and they say, "Where's Death?" And they look up and you hear, and he's falling right towards you. Well, they did it at Vasquez Rocks, and they built this huge pile of mats and cushions and things for the stunt guy to fall into. And they planted the camera right in the middle of it, facing straight up. So he was going to come down like a giant bat or something with the scythe in his hand. He had a rubber scythe, so he didn't hurt himself. And he jumped off a cliff and he went, "Ah!" and he flew and he went pow, and he hit the mat, and they didn't bury it the camera deep enough. When he hit it, he bent the mat box with his groin, and he got off this pile of mats, and he's limping around. And they didn't ask him to do it again, which was great, because I'm pretty sure he would have. because that's what stuntmen do. It's like their arm could be hanging by, two tendons, and no, I'm good. I can go again. But anyway, that was when you watch the movie, say thank you to that guy who I hope he recovered eventually, but he did limp back to the trailers.
And another great story you told is the scene when you guys are out shopping. The scene you filmed with the director.
Oh!
A great ad lib line.
I sort of ad libbed a fair amount in that movie, because once I got into that Czechoslovakian accent, it was easy. Everything he said was funny, and I couldn't get out of the character, and I kept having ideas all the time. And Pete Hewitt, the director, was great. He was great about that, because if they were funny, they got in, and then, But in the hardware store, I thought, wouldn't it be great if Death came across somebody who's smoking a cigarette, and it just, as he walks by, just say, "See you real soon," and just keep walking, and have the guy go and put the cigarette out, right? And Pete Hewitt, to his everlasting credit, said, "That's great. But they didn't have an actor to play it, because I just thought of it, and so he said, "Bring the camera over here," and he lit up a cigarette, and that's him. My God, this thing keeps going black. There it is. That's the director, Pete Hewitt, with the cigarette, who I say, "See you real soon."
Well, our time is running short, so I have just a couple of quick more questions.
Okay, lightning round.
Iron Man 3, Shane Black. It must have felt amazing to get involved in the MCU and to work with Robert Downey Jr. and all those great actors and the amazingly talented effects team of the MCU. What were your thoughts on that? And will we see President Ellis again?
I would love to reprise President Ellis. They haven't called. I don't know. But they were fantastic. I had never done a film of that size, of that. I mean, I've done sort of big movies before, but I'd never worked on a green screen stage, like the flying thing, with the harness and the pajamas with the tight-fitting pajamas with the spots all over them for the camera. But it was fantastic. My favorite memory of that was every time I would come on the sound stage, the crew started quietly humming "Hail to the Chief," which just blew me away. I was like, "Thank you, guys."
I'll have you know this, as you know, I'm an enormous fan of yours, and I went to Queens College with Johnny Favreau for 5 years, who went on to become the guy who started. Just so you know, around 2008-9, when he released the first Iron Man movie, his nickname was Hack in college because he always played with a hacky sack. And I get, "Hack, I love your movies. You're an amazing filmmaker. You're unbelievably talented.
Wow.
But you're not going to have a great movie until you put William Sadler in one." So I don't know. I don't know if it actually worked, because it was Shane Black's.
So you told him that
it was Shane Black's movie, so I don't know if it had any weight. But I kept begging him to put you in one of his movies.
I auditioned. Well, I did audition for it, but yeah.
But he has incredible.
Thank you. That's probably why I got the job.
It had absolutely nothing to do with it, because Hack doesn't like me that much. But I wanted to tell you that because you're awesome.
Well, thank you.
The Frank Darabont films, Shawshank Redemption, The Mist, which is just like one of my favorite movies of all time, one of the most impactful endings of a film. The Green Mile. Just final thoughts on those films?
I was very fortunate to hook up with Frank Darabont early on. He was one of the writers on Tales from the Crypt, and I did the first episode of TV series, Tales from the Crypt, the HBO show. And it was if you got a minute, there was the audition for this Tales from the Crypt. It's about an executioner who gets laid off from his job at the prison, and he goes out moonlighting and killing people. And they had me in to audition for the cop at the end, and his only line in the whole half-hour show was, "Mr. Talbot, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, that's it." And I did the audition for Karen Ray, and she said, "Thank you." And I said, "What's up with the role of Talbot?" And she said, "Oh, they want Kurt Russell or John Malkovich. They're looking for a name." And I said, okay. And I left, and I got halfway across the parking lot at Fox from Joel Silver's office. And she stuck her head out the window and said, "Bill, come here." And she gave me the sides. She said, "Come back on Monday. I'll put you on tape." She put me on tape. Walter Hill loved it. He directed that. And I did it. Joel Silver's next movie was Die Hard 2. With Walter Hill, I did Trespass after that.
With Bill Paxton, great movie.
With Bill Paxton. And Frank Darabont came up to me on the set of Tales from the Crypt. He was a writer on that show and said, "I'm going to do this movie called Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, and I'd like you to be in it." And I said, "Great." I didn't think anything of it because, everybody, because this thing keeps going black. Because, everybody in Hollywood's got a movie script they're going to do. But he sent me the anthology, A Different Season. And anyway, that, it came to pass. But it was funny, though, that one, I stopped and I asked the cast woman, "What's up with that role?" And she took it, she just took a chance. She took she said, "Well, I'll put him on tape. If it's awful, I won't show it to anybody. What's the worst that can happen?" And it's fun that I can point to that exact moment, and so many different projects and things just peeled off, reverberated out from that. So Karen Ray, wherever you are, I know probably not watching, but thank you.
Well, Mr. Sadler, I don't know why I called you Sandler. I'm getting old. You notice that when you get old, things just don't work anymore? Mr. Sadler, it was an absolute honor, and I really hope that you will join me again, because I just barely touched the tip of the iceberg of the things I wanted to talk with you about.
Okay.
And it was an honor and a pleasure to speak with you. Is there anything you want to tell our audience about where they can find you, upcoming movies, events, anything? The floor is yours.
I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. You can find me if you look. Just stay safe, just, you're going to get through this. We're all going to get through this, and it's going to be awful. But I have great faith in the creativity and the energy, and we push Americans up against a wall. I love to see the pushback. I love to see people, the courage that I'm seeing and the compassion that I'm seeing everywhere. Anyway, stay safe. We'll see you on the other side. We'll keep making movies, okay?
And we have a big blockbuster Bill and Ted sequel that I know you're a part of. So maybe we'll talk about that next time we're on.
And you can look for VFW, which is another, which is a great one. Joe Bagos. You guys, I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to talk about that so much, but you should catch that.
And you have my condolences, because I hang out with Fred the Hammer Williamson a lot, and I understand what it must have been like working.
He He was great. He's very
I went
good.
out to dinner with him one time, and out of nowhere, I know him for years. He said, "Stop looking at me, sucker, when I eat." And I was just like, "Okay." He horrified me.
He goes on the set. He kept. We were doing a scene, and somebody's beating up Sierra, the female lead, and she and he'd say, Hammer would never. That's all I ever heard out of him. Hammer wouldn't do that. Hammer wouldn't let that happen.
It's like
no matter what it was like standing at the bar drinking. So Hammer wouldn't do this.
He's the king of the third person.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Mr. Sadler. It's an honor, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. Good night.
I'm speechless.
Another hour and a half at least.
I know. I got goosebumps from talking. I mean, William Sadler just told us a story about how he sneezed and shit on himself. One of the greatest actors in the entire history of cinema.
And how he directed Steven Seagal.
Yes. And that Steven Seagal impersonation was like outstanding. Can you see why I wanted him so desperately on this show, Joe? He's just so amazing. My next guest, because we'll talk about the entire show, Joe, but I know we have somebody waiting in the green room.
Yeah, we absolutely do.
Yeah, and my next guest, everyone loves as Francine on the smash hit show The Walking Dead, the amazingly beautiful and the amazingly talented Dahlia Legault.
Hi.
Hello, sweetheart. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am very sorry to make you wait.
It's okay. It's all good. I took a nap. Had a snack.
What'd you have?
I had this a can of soup.
Progresso?
Yeah. No, it's like, I don't know. Is it called it's some fancy one. What is it called? I can't remember now. But one of these new. You said Progresso, and I was like, progressive, yes, because it's progressive soup. But
okay.
But yeah, no, I can't remember. So, how's it going?
It's going very well. I was just interviewing William Sadler.
I was watching a bit of it.
Yes, and I apologize because I kind of geeked out because I'm a middle-aged guy. And William Sadler was like in Die Hard 2, and he was Death in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and he was in Shawshank Redemption.
He was in Rocket Man, which is what I remember him from.
He was in Rocket Man. So I apologize for being geeked out. Luckily, I am blessed to know you personally, so you're like, I know he's a geek already, so I'm not going to be concerned about how geeky he is.
You're all good. Things are fine.
How are things going in New York City?
All right. I mean, what's odd about New York City right now is that really, I mean, there is a lot of people are staying home, but because there's such a high population here, there's still a lot of people walking around out there. Nobody really drives a car, so you have to leave the house to do things. You have to be out in public to do things. So, yeah, my neighborhood's still pretty active, believe it or not. But otherwise things are good. Otherwise things are fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not too much. Yeah, I'm just bored. I'm just very bored.
I'm sorry if I'm keeping you awake.
No. You're fine. Like I said, I took a nap. Actually, I tried to watch some. If you know the Met Opera is showing just like free opera every night.
Mm-hmm.
So I started watching the Fisherman's Pearl, and I ended up just like falling asleep while I was watching it. It was awesome. It wasn't that it was like terribly boring. I was just lying down listening to opera, so I just passed out. But all's well.
So my question to you.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about what it was like to audition and to ultimately get on one of the most famous and most popular television shows in history, The Walking Dead.
So this is okay. So the situation with me and the situation with Francine, the situation with the whole thing is that I was cast on the show, I was booked off of the show while living in the Southeast. So when I auditioned, it was just basically like a taping that you do at home and it's sent in. So not a lot actually happened with the audition. It was kind of thing that happened within a week. You put the thing on tape, you send it in. And so I get the role. It's pretty simple. The interesting things about it is that I hadn't even attained a SAG card before getting onto The Walking Dead. It was the first thing I ever booked. Of course you do like student films and all that kind of stuff all day long. And, prior to that, but here I am and I'm 31 and I haven't even gotten like a part of the union. So that's what got it for me. I audition, I go, and you're going to judge me so much for this. And this is because I was stupid and I didn't know any better at the time. I go on set and I meet the director, and the director is like, "Hi, I'm Jen." I'm like, "Hi, Jen, how are you?" The woman has these like dreadlocks and she's like, I couldn't really tell how old she was. She's awesome. Drinking black coffee the whole time, smoking cigarettes the whole time. She's awesome. A year goes by and the episode comes out and I look up her name and it says that she had done a film called The Diary of Laura Palmer. And I'm like, that's funny. How was she able to, do something that David Lynch? I was like, did you get any copyright for that? And it's only then I realized that was Jennifer Lynch, David Lynch's daughter.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea. And she was, yeah. So, and
was she nice?
She was fantastic. She was the most down to earth, coolest. I mean, yeah, easiest person to work with. And the conversation that I had with her while I was on set was that she told me, she's like, when I saw your video, she's like, you're the one that I wanted. You absolutely kicked everybody's ass out of the way. And that she was like still on the phone, with production, almost like she's like almost every half hour is on the phone with him. Like, did you book her yet? You need to book her now. If I lose her, I'm going to kill everybody, all this kind of stuff. She was so adamant about getting me on that show. And I think I jumped a lot. She was able to get me through a lot of hoops. I don't think if she was not directing that episode, I don't think I would have been booked for it. I think she's the one that, because it has to go, it goes from your agent to a casting director. Then I think it goes to the director and then it goes to production. So sometimes even if the director of the episode picks somebody, production still has to agree on it. So
it all went in your favor.
Yes. Because interesting enough, David, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I told you this, but I was cast for season 2 of Stranger Things, but I wasn't booked.
Oh, okay. Do you know what character you were going to play?
Right. It is season 2, right? Where Elle goes to that like other city and she joins that other group of people for a little while.
Those. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those guys.
Oh, wow. That would have been cool.
Yeah. It would have been amazing.
They're lost.
But the demographics changed. They needed somebody younger. They needed people of different. Yeah.
The scary part is I think you could play late teenager, which is just so unfair.
I think it was age and other things. I think it might have been, demographics. So, and that's why I was kind of it was completely out of my control. And what I was saying, I was like, I would have been irate if the episode came out and it was somebody that looked exactly like me. I would have been irate. But no, it was, some 28-year-old, maybe younger. She might have been like 25. And then she, a very, very darker complexion, totally different race and everything. So some things are out of your control.
They're lost.
So, no.
So tell me, do you have any juicy stories from the actual set or when you were actually shooting The Walking Dead?
Oh man, that's such a big question. You should have told me this before. Now I have to think about this. Juicy, like in what respect and what? Oh, so this is actually kind of funny. There was a day, I can't remember what episode it was. It was season 6. I can't remember what episode it was, but we're outside, right? And it is the hottest day in Georgia of the year. It is absolutely sweltering. and on Walking Dead, you don't, you're wearing 4 layers of clothing because it's like, apocalypse, and everyone has these like tattered clothes. So you have like a wife beater, and then over that you have like the sweater that has like holes in it, and then you have like a jacket over that, and then you have your jeans, and you're wearing Doc Marten boots. And even though the bottom part of the sock is normal, then you have these wool things on top that are like wrapping around your boots. So so it's hot. You have the crew passing out ice cold wet towels for everybody to put them on their neck and stuff like that, so nobody starts passing out. And we all break for lunch, and we go and we sit down at a table, and you have your food, and Ross Marquand is sitting across from me, and I go and I take one bite of my food, and all of a sudden I feel like I'm going to be sick. And Ross looks at me and he's like, "Are you gonna puke right at the table?" I got up and I ran to one of these like honey wagon bathroom things, not an actual bathroom, these like portable bathroom things. Ran in there and I literally like had to strip myself absolutely naked. Just like
you were horrifying me there for a minute, Dahlia. I thought you were going to have another William Sadler story where you barfed and pooped on yourself or something at the same time.
No, yeah.
I don't know if you heard that story earlier.
No, I didn't. I missed it.
He was about to do Dial M for Murder on Broadway. Well, no, not on Broadway, in New York City. And right as the curtain was about to open, and he had one of the lead parts, he had to let go of an ungodly sneeze. And he did an ungodly sneeze, and at the same time...
He sharted.
He sharted.
That's awful. That's awful. So what did he do?
Who hasn't been there before? He just, like any true amazing professional, he probably gave the best. Yeah, he probably gave the best performance of the night.
That's terrifying.
No, wait a minute.
I would have been like, no.
You have to interrupt. No. He did say instead of sitting on the couch, he leaned against it.
Or leaned against the bar. I think he leaned against the bar, maybe.
Wow. That's fantastic.
So other than The Walking Dead, I know that you have a movie career too. And what can you tell us about Bernie and the Dolphin? I know there's been 2 of them now.
There's 2 of them now. Bernie and the Dolphin it's a very, very sweet, of course it's G-rated, it's a children's film, it's a family movie. And I'm quite proud of the production because it was all filmed in Florida, which does not happen so often. And which is a shame too, because you would think that, Florida being that, that does not snow, you could shoot all year long there, but Florida is very against putting out a film incentive. Taxpayers are afraid of a film incentive. So it did come to St. Petersburg, and now a lot of stuff is going to St. Petersburg, which is within Tampa Bay. And yeah, so, and I got to work with Kevin Sorbo and Patrick Muldoon, and actually the younger girl, Lola Sultan, it is her family who produced the film itself. But I'm pretty sure they're from California as well. So the writer is from Florida. The screenwriter is from Florida. Obviously, a lot of the crew was as well, but the producers are from LA, and their daughter Lola Sultan is the star of the movie. So it was a very, very nice experience. Everybody was so kind. Everybody just had a lot of fun, and I'm very proud about the work that came out of it. I think it's lovely.
And you were involved in both of them, right? 1 and 2?
Yeah, I played. Yeah, so because it's a family. It's about a young girl and a boy who rescue a dolphin. Basically, they find a sunburnt dolphin on the beach, and that's why they name him Bernie, because he's sunburnt. So yeah, it's a film about saving nature and stuff like that. So yeah, I play the mother. It's about a family, and I play the mother of Lola Sultan. Actually, the second for the second movie, I actually think I am on the cover of the cover of the picture of the movie. I think.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, which is cool. They didn't put me on the, of course, the first movie they didn't put my name on there, but the second one I'm there, which is kind of cool. First time something like that's happened. So I highly recommend it.
I actually purchased both of those movies, and they're about 4 movies down from on my stock of movies. So
okay, great.
I will definitely
let me know.
Do you have any story? I mean, I think our paths have crossed on the convention circuit a few times. Do you have any funny stories about the convention circuit?
About the convention? Wow, I miss conventions so much. I was actually talking to you. You've met Chris Twellman, right? He's the Abraham cosplayer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, German guy. Yeah, so he actually texted me today, and he's like, are you still interested in Comic-Cons? I was like, yes, absolutely. Comic-Con to me is such a fun time. You meet so many people, so many cool people. I've gotten trips to Austria with Comic-Cons. I've gone to Austria. I've gone to England. The amount of places that I've gone with them. Just the people that you meet. I would say the people that struck me the most, which is really funny. It's like, why do these people? And so the people that I met the most, that struck me the most, was that I had met from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the original with Jane Fowler. I met Charlie Bucket and Mike Teavee.
Sweet.
And that kind of blows your mind because you don't think those people are actual real people. It kind of like blows up your perception. I was like, I would have never, that puts things into perspective for you. The Comic-Con that I went to Austria with was just absolutely mind-blowing. They didn't give us a guarantee, which I didn't care. I was like, it's a free trip to Austria. I'm totally fine with that. And then there was an extra day where they just took us around kind of like, as tourists. And so I saw I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but the Schönbrunn Palace, I think it's how it's pronounced. Yeah. And that is just absolutely one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. Literally a palace. And it's like, it's something you'd see in a movie, and never before, like never would I have thought I would have seen it. It was like stepping into it. I can't explain. You see the front of the mansion, right? You see the front of it, and I'm like, okay, that's a big house, whatever. We weren't going in the house. We decided to just go in that. So, but I go around, and it was like, I don't know, the backyard, the property of it was this ginormous hill, and on top of the hill there was this like other kind of like a castle-like structure on the top of the thing. And I swear, when I went around the building, I swear, my mouth just dropped, and I must have looked like an absolute freak, because I was just like I almost fell. I must have looked like the biggest idiot. I was like, oh my God, like stuff like this is real. I never would have thought. So
I'm sorry I got distracted for a minute, but our intrepid producer, Joe Ridgely, just IM'd me telling me that he lost his internet. So I was preoccupied for a moment.
Yeah, all good.
Okay. Before I bid you a fond adieu, and of course, thank you so much for being on my show. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to apologize to you and the thousands and thousands of people who are watching this, because this poor young lady, I'm not a big technology guy, and for the first time ever, I decided to give somebody a call on Facebook, like where you talk to people face to face on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And I called Dahlia like 2 or 3 days ago on this, and I didn't realize that it was going to be audio and video. So I'm there talking to this lovely and talented young lady, and I realized that as I'm talking to her, I'm sitting there in my feety pajamas, and my feety and my feety pajamas are this particular pair, because I have several pairs. This particular pair of feety pajamas was flaming red with giant ninja monkeys on it.
That's great.
Yeah. And I'm talking to her, and she's looking at me like, and I'm like, oh, okay, you can see me. And then I, like, in my moronic state, show her that I'm literally wearing feety pajamas. I show her the feet of the feety pajamas, and I realized that was probably a cruel and unusual punishment. So I apologize.
No, there's no, there's this one, this one meme on Facebook where it's like, now all you do is you just have your daytime pajamas and then your nighttime pajamas. Like, and I totally agree with that. Like, now if I have to leave the house, I'm putting jeans on. I'm just like, are you freaking serious right now?
You know what? You're inspiring me, because if anybody ever wants to make a movie about Rachel Maddow, you're the person to cast.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely.
You're like a beautiful Rachel Maddow.
Thank you. Rachel Maddow is not bad looking.
Well, she's not as beautiful as you are.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I would definitely play Maddow.
Dahlia, do you have anywhere that our fans and friends can look you up and get information about you?
I mean, I would say just IMDb. IMDb, there's a lot of information on there. That's really, I did have a website up going for a little while, but I didn't keep it updated, so I should probably come out with another one. But yeah, no, IMDb, you can look at Instagram. Actually, Instagram's a good place. I post on there pretty regularly. So yeah, Instagram, my name, Dahlia Legault.
Okay,
so.
Everybody, I know there's tons of filmmakers who watch this show, who watch this platform and this network. If you want to work with an incredibly talented actress who does everything right as far as being on time, being professional, and being courteous, and just being wonderful, reach out to Dahlia, because she's just all those things.
Thank you so much, David. Awesome.
No, wait a minute. You forgot about being a badass.
Oh. No one is more badass.
Am I being
than
too
Francine.
nice now? As this
Dahlia, do you know how badass Francine is in the comic books too?
I know
Characters.
how bad she is. Yeah, she had a very different turnout in the graphic novel, but
you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francine. I'll talk to you soon.
So,
thank you, Dahlia. I'll talk to you soon.
It's okay. All right, bye.
Wow. Okay, so I do have to apologize. Everything went blank on me with the whole pandemic and everything. It's the internet gods are looking down going, hey, watch this.
But listen, luckily you did it behind the scenes where nobody knew that anything was going wrong.
Well, see, I wasn't sure of that, so I'm assuming we didn't lose any footage. That'd be great.
No, not at all. As far as I know, everything was fine.
Beautiful. Well, we got your next guest. If you would
Mr. Mena. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is not only a dear personal friend of mine, but an amazingly talented director. You may know him from the Malevolence series, I'll just talk to Mr. Mena. How are you tonight? Steven. I want to personally apologize for you to make you wait a little bit longer than I anticipated. But as you probably saw, I was geeking out with William Sadler.
No worries. My best friends call me Cash.
So what does that make me? Because I call you Steven.
Well, we go way back, so you're allowed.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly fine. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Going a little stir crazy, but I'm not. It's not like I'm alone with a cast on my leg and everybody else is out playing. We're all in the same boat, so it makes it a little easier to tolerate.
I could imagine it's kind of horrifying, everything that's going on.
Yes, it is.
So, I would be remiss to have you on my show and not talk about a film that I just think is not only, it has its moments of suspense and scares, but I think it's just hysterical. Brutal Massacre. Tell us about Brutal Massacre and what it was like to work with David Naughton and Brian O'Halloran. And I'm having a brain fart. Who was the gentleman from Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh, that would be Gunnar Hansen.
Gunnar Hansen was in that. It's just a great movie, Steve.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's actually my favorite film of all the work that I've done. It was great to work with all those people. It was actually Brutal Massacre was inspired by my diary while shooting Malevolence. everything, a lot of people don't know this, but everything that happens in Brutal Massacre actually happened to me on the set of Malevolence. So David Naughton is kind of a caricature of what I was afraid I might turn into if I stayed within, just making horror films throughout my entire career. And that actually was born out of a meeting I had with Wes Craven back in 2003. I was at a film festival with Malevolence. We were promoting it. And he was there doing a retrospective for Nightmare on Elm Street. And so after the show, I got a chance to talk to him. And I said, hey, listen, I'm an up-and-coming horror director. Do you have any tips or advice? He says, yeah, don't make horror films. And I said, why? He says, because you're going to end up like me and get pigeonholed, and you'll never be able to make any other film. So that kind of stuck with me. And that was the genesis behind the Harry Penderecki characters, my fear of turning into who Harry is, being this pigeonholed director, which is essentially what's happened to me. So it's kind of prophetic, but yeah, it's actually coming out. We're doing a re-release. It's on Blu-ray for the first time. We're working on the disc right now, working on all the extras. It's been a little bit of a challenge because I did want to get a lot of people together to do some behind the scenes commentary, which has been a little bit more challenging now. It's hard to get people together with everything that's going on. But I think people who like the film will be very pleased with the new transfer, which is taken straight off the original Super 16 negative. And yeah, there's a lot of amazing bonuses and deleted scenes and stuff like that. So for fans of the film, all three of them, they're going to be very happy.
No, it's just an amazing. It's amazingly funny, and you're amazingly talented. Before I start talking to you about your wonderful Malevolence trilogy, sadly, you guys just had a terrible loss in the Malevolence family. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, it's almost to the point where I'm wondering if the film is cursed, because of course, we had Scotty Decker, who was one of the lead actors, who passed away during production of Malevolence 3. And now here we are only a year or so out from releasing the film, and Jay Cohen, who plays the killer in Malevolence 3, and who's been pretty much my best friend for the last 22 years ever since we met in film school. He passed away suddenly of a heart attack back on February 3rd. What's been haunting me since it happened is he and I would talk pretty much every day, and so about 2 weeks went by where he had started a new job. He used to do, one of his side things was doing visual effects work, and he had started a new job in the city. And so I hadn't heard from him in about 2 weeks, and I texted him and I said, are you alive? And he finally texted me back and he says, no, I died. I'm a ghost now. And I said, oh, it's too bad. I always liked you. And he writes back and says, it's okay. The ghost life is better. Anyway, we kept talking after that, all joking aside. And I asked him how his job was going and everything. Anyway, 3 days later, he was dead. So it's really eerie.
I'm sorry about that, Steven.
Yeah, it's kind of haunted me since then. What's really depressing when you put this whole coronavirus pandemic in perspective is I can look back now and say, well, he passed away at a time where we were actually able to hold a funeral for him and invite people to come down. Mm-hmm. If he'd have died now, we couldn't do that. But sometimes I wonder, if he checked out and missed all the fun. Maybe it's tough to talk about. It really is, because we were very close. It's hard to even consider, to even think about making another film without him there, because he's always been there for all the work that I've done, right from the very beginning. So it's a whole new experience for me now. It's definitely a difficult time.
My deepest condolences, and I think I got to meet him when we were shooting Killer 3, and he seemed like a wonderful kid. Well, not a kid. I'm sorry. I feel like such an old man that they call anybody who doesn't look old like me a kid. So.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. He was actually 42 years old, but he still looked perennially young. He looked, like he was a teenager. He just never grew up. So, and that's, I think, when he got sick, the symptoms that he had, sometimes when you have symptoms of a heart attack, an impending heart attack, those symptoms can mirror the flu. And he went to a doctor who basically said, yeah, you've got the flu. Here's some medicine. Go home. And a day later he was gone. So yeah, it's weird how that is.
So on to more cheerful things.
Yes, please.
Tell us about the first movie in the Malevolence series.
Well, I mean, that's a long story. So let's be a little more specific, like about the making of it, or about the reason why I made it, or
tell us about how it came together and what inspired you to make it.
Well, I had actually written a book that I wanted to turn into a movie, and Malevolence was the middle part of that book, and it was the only part of the book that I could do low budget. And I decided to do a horror film first because I knew it was really the only type of film, independent film I could make where I didn't need big name stars to sell it. And it would also translate all over the world. And it paid off. It was a gamble that paid off because I actually had a drama that I was going to do as well. And I was debating between the two. And I ended up doing the horror film because horror, for me, was my favorite genre growing up. Ever since I was around 10 or 11 years old, I started getting into horror films, started, renting horror films on VHS. I got into it when Texas Chainsaw Massacre was re-released by New Line in 1982. And I saw it in the theaters. It was 1982, 1983, because I was about 12. And ever since then, I became obsessed with that film and how that film was made. And that was actually the film that started me thinking about becoming a director. Because I thought, you know what, I don't know anyone in the business. I don't know anything about it, but these guys did it for no money. So maybe there's a way to do it. And it was what planted the seed in my head of not only becoming a director, but becoming a horror director. So it's really kind of cool for me to look back and see how everything played out. Like, for example, how Gunnar Hansen ended up seeing the film, loved the film, and drove all the way down from Maine to Worcester, Massachusetts, just to meet me and tell me how much he liked the film because he knew I was premiering it there, which was like a complete shock because I told him, I'm a huge fan of yours. So the fact that you're here is just, mind blowing to me. And I said, I'd love to work with you on a project someday. So not only did I get to meet him, become friends with him, really good close friends, but I got to actually put him in a film. And I was told by his partner, they weren't married, but I was told by his partner that before he died, he was asked, what his favorite role was. And he said of all the things that he had done, his favorite role was playing Crenshaw in Brutal Massacre because it was the first time he actually got to play himself. And what I mean by that is when he came to the set, he had prepared this weird affectation on his voice on how he was going to present the character. And I told him, I said, listen, I'm hiring you because I like you and I like your personality. I want you to just be yourself. And he was so thrilled with that because he had never been able to do that before. He was always either playing, a masked killer or an unmasked killer who had to sort of emulate that first killer. So this was the first time where he was actually playing a human character, so to speak. And I said, just be you. So, he just loved the fact that I gave him that opportunity. And I remember one time he was at a convention and he called me up because he said that the Crenshaw picture had outsold the Leatherface picture for the first time. And he was really proud of that. So it was really awesome. Nice to hear that.
Now, on the second one, you got to work with Michael Biehn and the enormously famous Alexandra Daddario. Is that did I pronounce your name correctly?
Daddario, like the guitar.
Daddario. Yes. How did that all come together?
Well, it was through my casting agent, Adrienne Stern. She brought her in along with 200 other girls. At that time, she was nobody. She had never done a film before. So she had done like a walk-on part on a film called The Squid and the Whale, where she plays pretty girl. She just walks on camera and then walks off. So she never actually had, a major role, much less a lead role. And I cast her. She wasn't my first choice, but the person I wanted, that fell through. And the weirdest thing is I was actually coming back from casting sessions and I went into a magazine shop and Alexandra had posed for a picture on Psychology Today. And I was just browsing through magazines waiting for my train and I saw her picture and I was like, that's a sign. She looks great on that picture. I'm going to cast her. And I did. And she came down and it was a little rough in the beginning. But I was at odds with my producers. They weren't as big of a fan as I was. I was a huge fan from the very beginning. The one thing that I feel like I have is I'm able to spot sparks in actors, and I just have a sixth sense of, I think, who's going to work well on camera and who's going to be well received by the audience, and I felt that about her really strongly, and it turns out I was right. I would tell her on the set all the time that I knew she was going to be a huge star. And you can't just say, just because you're pretty, you're going to be a huge star. You've got to have that spark. And certainly other people have seen it too, because look where she is now. But yeah, it was tough in the beginning, but she worked her way through it, and her confidence grew and grew. And I think, honestly, I think Bereavement is still one of her best performances of all the things that she's done. Not to disparage her other work, but I do think she really did an amazing job in that film.
No, it was a great performance, and Michael Biehn was also wonderful.
Yeah, but I've had luck like that. Like, for example, when we were casting Malevolence 3, the girl I originally cast in the Katie Gibson role was a girl called Andi Matichak, who went on to star in the new Halloween film that's being put out by Blumhouse. But I actually fired her before we shot one day because her agent was a complete psychopath. Who started making all these crazy demands, and I said, your actor isn't even SAG, she's not even a union actor, and you want like a car service, and you want this, and you want that, and you want to triple the salary. And I said, look, we're a very small independent production. We just we're not looking for someone who's going to be a headache. And so it was really awful because we really liked her, but we ended up firing her. But of course, she landed on her feet because she ended up being the lead in Halloween.
Absolutely.
But it was, for me, it was like validation that once again I was able to spot somebody who I thought had that spark, and I was right.
Well, you didn't lose much because Katie was fantastic.
That's the other thing is, Katie is somebody that I met doing this small side job. It wasn't even film related, and I remember meeting her and saying, "What are you doing here?" And I spotted her right away. I knew that there was something special about her, and I remember inviting her to come down just to read with the other actors. And she wasn't really interested. She's not an actress at all. But she did come down, and she started reading, and she blew all the actors away. So I said to her, I said, listen, I think, you have something there. I think you really should explore it. And we did a little test with Bereavement. She played a few minor bit roles that ended up getting cut from the film, which in the end was beneficial because I was able to bring her back and play the lead in Malevolence 3, and she knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely. Now, as far as Malevolence 3, I had the great honor of working with you on this film. And when the film first came out, we got to go out.
Sorry, I was just doing some magic for your viewers.
Okay. We got the opportunity to go out and do a signing at the very, very first issue of the relaunch of Fangoria with Brian O'Halloran.
Yes.
There we are. And that was quite a fun evening.
Yeah, that was fun.
Now, this is probably going to be the most hardball and hard-hitting question that you were ever asked by anybody ever interviewing you.
I'm straight.
Were you intimidated working with the great Dave Madison?
Only by height. Everything else was good, but yes, it's very hard looking up to you all the time. Listen, man, you did a great job, and I was very impressed with you. And your role grew based on merit, because originally, if you remember, it was just a walk-on part where you were wearing a jacket, and you ended up getting a line. And I was so pleased with how not only how you performed, but your work ethic too. Because on independent films, sometimes it's tough just to get people to show up. And you were always first one there. You're always the last person to leave. Everybody liked you, and I thought your performance was great. I thought you actually were perfect for the role. So I was really pleased how it all worked out.
The check is in the mail, Steven. I appreciate all those kind things you just said.
Yeah. Well,
I can't wait till you and I and our friends are sitting at Citi Field watching the Mets. Do you think this is going to happen anytime soon?
No, I think we're going to be prisoners for quite a long time.
Do you really?
Yeah. I don't think we're going to. We may get out and walk about in a couple of months, But you're not going to see large gatherings. I don't even think you're going to see that this year.
Do you think school is done for this year?
Yeah. And not only that, it may be done for the next semester too. I've spoken to a couple of people who are kind of at the front lines and have explained some of the details to me, and everything that they've said so far has come true, including like the fact that it's aerosolized, which hasn't really been revealed until yesterday, and I kind of knew that a couple of weeks ago. And everybody in power knew that too, but I think they've been slowly releasing the truth in drips and drabs so that people don't panic. For example, there's no masks to be had out there, so you don't want to tell people that something is airborne when they can't find something or buy something to protect themselves, because then you get people fighting in the street over stuff like this. So I think the way that they've structured how they've released the information is kind of brilliant, because it's prevented people from panicking. And I know there are certain political sides that feel like everything should just come out and everything should just be laid out on the table. Who cares who gets scared? But at the same time, you got to remember, you don't want to rattle the markets. You don't want to get people so nervous that they just start eating each other, right? So I think the way it's been measured for release has kept everybody calm. And I think that's the most important thing. But you got to give people small goals. Like I remember the president was saying, we're going to get out by Easter. But those are small goals, because then you say, okay, I can do 2 weeks. And then they say, well, you know what, it's probably going to be the end of April. And you're like, okay, all right, end of April, I can probably do that. And it gives you a goal in your mind. When April ends, you're going to hear, well, you know what, we're probably going to be in here till June. But you see, if someone says to you, you know what, guys, we're all going to be inside for 6 months, nobody's going to agree to that. And everybody's going to go crazy.
Well, Stevan, I want to thank you very, very much for being on my show tonight. Is there anywhere, any information you can give the people who watch this lovely program, information on how to find you?
Yeah, it's easy. Just go to Stevan Mena. That's StevanMena, StevanMena.com. That's my website. And you can also purchase all of my films there. Anything that you purchase is actually shipped directly by me, signed by me. We actually have a sale right now going on. It's 30% off pretty much the entire Malevolence trilogy. So something that normally goes for about $39 is selling for $25. So that's available, and that's going to be available for about the next 2 weeks. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And look for Brutal Massacre. It's going to be released this summer, I think in June. So look for that on Blu-ray and also on digital.
Thank you, Stevan. And if you guys haven't seen the Malevolence trilogy or Brutal Massacre yet, you're doing yourself a disservice, because they are really, really great films. And I'm especially fond of the third Malevolence. I'm not going to tell you why, but they're all great movies. And Stevan, I'll talk to you soon, pal. Be well and be safe.
Thanks.
Always my pleasure. And always, whenever you wish to come on, we'd love to have you.
Thanks, guys. Be safe. Be well.
Be well.
Thank you. Good night. What a night, huh?
It's just amazing. I mean, I'm part of this show and I want to watch it.
Well, I'm going to give you the floor.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight on this truly historic episode of The End of the Night. Of course, I want to thank George Romero for letting me play in his sandbox on being on his wonderful network. Again, I really want to thank our guest tonight, the amazing William Sadler, the iconic William Sadler, the amazing Dahlia Legault, who's from The Walking Dead and just an amazingly funny and talented actress. And, of course, Stevan Mena, who is just a great filmmaker. And, of course, the great guest George had on earlier. It just made for an enormously entertaining evening. Where are you, Joe? Do you have to go to the bathroom?
Well, I was just going to let you keep going on and on and on. I figured
it's getting late. I don't want to keep these poor people up with my stupidity any further.
Right on. So, David, yes. you have movies as well. Can you give a quick rundown on what those are, please?
Oh, yes. If you want to watch my work, I made a film 2012 called Mr. Hush, which I am the super proud of. It stars horror icon Stephen Jeffries, the late Steve Dash, who was best known as Jason Voorhees, Brad Lowry, who played Michael Myers and was from X-Men 2, and Brian O'Halloran, of course, who is Dante from Clerks, is also in Mr. Hush. I also made a loving documentary called Middle Village, which is available. There's a sequel to Mr. Hush called Mr. Hush Legacy, which is a short film that you can get on Vimeo with Mr. Hush. And this is something really important to me. I'm making a film currently about the current situation we live in that is going to be historic. It's going to be groundbreaking, and it's going to resonate with people for generations to come. And if you want to be a part of this historic film, please IM me, and I'll get everybody who wishes to be involved in this film involved in it, because we're living in a time that everybody who's out there, we're all in this together, and everybody's story is important. So please make it a point to reach out to me, and we'll get you in this film that we're working on currently. I also have a film called Wit's End that was supposed to be in theaters, I think, in about 2 weeks, but all theater slates have been canceled. So I have no idea when that movie is going to come out. It's a great movie that I did with my pals from Clerks, Scott Schiaffo and Brian O'Halloran. It's a funny adventure film, and actually like just a deep emotional film too. So yeah, that's the stuff I got cooking.
Well, I'm curious about that. Is that just being delayed, or are you going directly to VOD?
I have no idea. We had a deal in place to have me and a couple of guys go out. It was going to be in limited edition, limited release. I think it was going to be like 130 theaters, and we were supposed to start in late May and early June. But I think the theater chain that was going to be exclusively showing the theater is actually closed. So the last thing when I heard from them last is that the minute they resume operations, we're going to discuss a release again.
And it's amazing how popular drive-in theaters are becoming right now. The ones that were about to go belly up are actually...
I have an amazing story about a drive-in theater. My local high school was about to cancel graduation, which I think is heartbreaking for kids who just spent the last 12 years getting their education. So I arranged for the local drive-in to have the graduation, and the idea being that each student will be projected onto a giant screen. Everybody will be in their vehicles. The PA system will announce each student. They will go up to a table that has all of the... When you get your diploma on your graduation day, it's not really your diploma, it's just ceremonial. They'll go up to the table, grab the diploma, stand in front of an entire drive-in movie theater of loved ones and other students who will clap, applaud, honk horns, flash lights, and then walk to their vehicle one by one in total safety.
That is awesome.
So instead of having it in a boring auditorium, we're doing it this way. I figured out this would probably be the safest way for the kids to get the recognition they deserve, and for them to have a once-in-a-lifetime memorable experience.
I just got to touch on Lance, and then first of all, Scott said brilliant, and I agree 100%. It is brilliant. And Lance saying The Throne next week, please. Got to discuss The Throne.
I'm going to put up, I have 3 thrones that I'm going to choose from to do the show from next week. I'll put the 3 up, and then people could vote on which one I do it from.
All right. One of them is not going to be a porcelain one, is it?
No, that is when I interview Elvis. I'll do it from the porcelain throne.
As he keels over.
As I keel over.
Awesome. All right. Any final words, sir?
Again, just an unbelievable show tonight. I want to thank William Sadler and Dahlia, Legault, and my dear friend Stevan Mena for doing the show. And I want to thank everybody for watching it, because doing the show doesn't mean anything if nobody's watching it. And if you are not entertained by this show tonight, I don't know what's going to do it. And when I say this show, I mean you and George's show and my show, like one continuous thing.
All right, and you got to have the sign off. What the hell is your sign off?
No. Wait. One other thing. I
Okay.
have even more historic guests lined up for us, so stay tuned.
Okay, so George Washington is going to be on next week.
That's the only way I'm going to top this show. All right, everybody out there, no man who has friends is... I screwed up my own line. What is the line? It's from It's a Wonderful Life. I think it's close. I'm going to paraphrase. The greatest movie in history, I'm going to paraphrase. A man with friends is truly rich. We'll see you guys next week.
And you can't always blame Joe.
I never blame Joe. I blame Joe Cat.